There's a new name for terror.
It would appear that you are creating a myth.
There's something out there in the woods.
There'll be no party here. The house is closed. I want you all out by tomorrow.
I'm a sea pig.
Don't you realize what we've done? It's an accident. It doesn't matter.
What's the boogeyman?
We would have never known Mrs. Slater's alive. How do we know she is alive?
The only way to get Erik is to trap him.
This is Mark Rossman. I'm the writer and director of The House on Sorority Row, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
Yeah, and welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, number 11. So we're steaming into double digits this time. And as you probably guessed, we're
steaming into number 2.
Well, we were going to be avoiding the number 2s this time.
Yeah, unfortunately. I had to get one in there before we did that.
Well, what I might as well do then is introduce the slasher reprobates for this evening, or this afternoon, as it's this evening in the UK and it's this afternoon in the States. So, hola, Erik.
Hi, I'm Erik. I'm an Aquarius, and I like chihuahuas and Chinese noodles.
Oh, what's that from? Or is that special? Is that your special thing?
It's a B-52 song.
God, I'm so not.
I think it's called "Song for a New Generation."
Well, thank you. I mean,
I thought you might get that one, but they're probably not goth enough for you.
They're not goth enough for me. No, I'm afraid not. But no, thank you.
They have big hair, though.
They did have very big hair hops, or whatever it is, Huns or whatever. But anyway, beehives, absolutely. So no, thank you, Erik. And Nathan.
Hello, everybody. This is Nathan. Oh, and I have a blog, and I would like people to read it, or at the very least, pretend to read it. Look it up on Facebook. Axe 2 Grinds Horrors, and that's Axe with an E.
Thank you. And there should be no other way of spelling axe, I don't think. Not using the Queen's English anyway. So thank you. Yes. Well, no, thank you for that, Nathan. And Joseph.
Who ate all the pecan sandies?
That wasn't me. Was it?
Yes, Roger.
That's Roger. You guys, every week or every fortnight you come out with these things I don't know, and I thought.
Well, I don't know Joseph's one either.
No,
it's Roger the Alien American Dad. It's a cartoon.
Yes, so we get that over here sometimes. I think I haven't seen it, but
I have seen it. It's very good.
Okay, excellent. I shall keep an eye out for that. But well, thank you guys for joining us, and thank you if you're listening wherever you are in the world. Whether you're in Milton Keynes or Honolulu, we welcome you. And as you probably guessed, we're covering one of the best of the latter slashers from the golden era, House on Sorority Row from 1983, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. And excitingly, if that is a word, isn't it? Excitingly, we have an exclusive interview. Joseph talked to the director Mark Rosman earlier this week, and also Nathan talked to the girl with her head in the toilet, Robin Malloy, who is going to tell us what it's like to act with her head in the toilet. And also,
I could tell you that. I'm not acting though.
No, well, I'm sure we've all spent much of our youth probably with our heads in the toilet.
Fucking drunk.
Yeah.
I haven't been sick through drink for a long time, and I haven't been sick down the toilet. But it's once you've done it, it's never forgotten. You're telling us, Joseph, you've never been sick? I take that as sorry.
What did you ask?
You're drunk now, aren't you? No, I said if you've never been sick, you've never had your head down a toilet.
No, actually, I've not. I've
really?
puked elsewhere, but not into a toilet.
Oh, you see, I'm classy. I do it into the toilet.
Wait a minute. Never in your life you've puked in a toilet. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I have, but not from drinking.
Well, there you go. Come on.
Right.
Yeah. The lady doth protest too much, as they say.
Oh, got it.
So, but also to say, I'll probably remind you later, Robin Malloy has got a fantastic new book out, and it's called Waltz of the Asparagus People, The Further Adventures Piano Girl. And you may think, well, what's that got to do with House on Sorority Row? It has a lot, because she played the character with the head in the toilet, and also it's an absolute hilarious read. She's got this new book out, And she's very, very, very kindly let us put the whole chapter up on Hysteria Lives. So it'll be up and ready to read when this is broadcast, and it is well worth reading. It's absolutely hilarious, and it's got a really insightful, funny, and, well, just really enlightening look at what it's like to be a slasher movie victim in a classic slasher movie. So we'll be talking to Robin later, and also Mark. But before we get to that, what we're going to do is do some of our usual things. What I'm going to say is, we've probably said on the forum already that we're taking a little bit of a break. You won't look like a break, because we're going to have new content every fortnight, as we're currently doing. It's just because we've got a few clashes of schedules. What we're going to do is do a few episodes in advance. So we're recording this today. So when you'll be listening to this on Sunday or beyond Sunday, and then we're going to be recording 2 features, an extra whopping feature length or double feature length episodes for My Bloody Valentine, of course, the original, and we have 4 interviews, 3 with the cast and 1 with the composer Paul Zaza. So that's going to be really exciting. So those will be coming out very, very soon, or in the next couple of weeks. So well, without further ado, what we're going to do is we're probably going to talk about recently seen films. Guys, what have you been watching recently? Erik?
Okay, well, my recently seen are not new movies, but I was in sunny St. Helens in the northwest of England last weekend, and there's this fantastic DVD shop there where you can get anything really for tuppence. And I managed to pick up the Arrow DVD company, who we seem to mention every week, their release of Stendhal Syndrome. I got it for £2.
Wow.
Now, I hadn't seen this for a while. I remember quite liking it at the time, but rewatching it last weekend, I wasn't that pushed, I have to say. There are some quite fun early CGI sequences that are quite tacky, and I could have done more of them to keep me entertained. I mean, it's not as bad as maybe The Card Player, but I still think Sleepless is the best of his recent output. I remember, Justin, last week you were saying you watched Perfume of the Lady in Black. I watched the sort of kind of similar Footprints on the Moon, which I'd seen before, but I'd rewatched it, and I really, really like it. It's got such a sort of surreal atmosphere with those flashbacks or flash forwards, whatever they are, to sequences of astronauts on the moon, which appear to have nothing to do with the plot, but that's sort of the joy of these sort of giallos. And it reminds me a lot of the recent Black Swan. This woman who's having kind of a psychological meltdown, and she has these visions, or are they visions, and that type of thing. So, I mean, that was a terrific film starring Florinda Balkan, of course, who was a giallo stalwart from the 70s.
She was in Don't Torture a Duckling, wasn't she? The Lucio Fulci film. Yeah.
Well, I'm speaking of giallo, and this is not recently seen, but recently heard. I was listening to the Movie Matters podcast. Count Fosco on Twitter he had some very nice things to say about our podcast, so I checked out their podcast, and their most recent episode, published last weekend, is a giallo special, and it is fantastic. I urge you all to seek it out. Movie Matters, you can get it on iTunes.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a high standard for us if we ever get around to a giallo episode.
Really? Okay. Well, they set the bar. I'm going to be down and listen to that this weekend. So, sounds great. Excellent. Well, thanks you, Erik. How about you, Nathan? What have you been watching?
Well, I watched Blood Diner last night, which I've seen it a million times. I just adore that movie.
I've never seen it. It's one of those films.
I can't believe you've never seen it.
No, I've never seen it either, Nathan.
It's one of those films I keep on wanting to watch, but I never got round to. So I shall make a note to watch it.
Was that the one that was supposed to be kind of a sequel to Blood Feast, but didn't turn out to be?
Yeah, that's right.
It's got the great, so many great scenes in it. I love the nude aerobicizing cheerleaders getting massacred.
Oh, I have to see it.
Because they're all like topless, and it's like, all right, remember, girls, this is going on cable coast to coast. Now, I'd love to be the only nude aerobicizing cheerleaders here, but we got to be the best nude aerobicizing cheerleaders. Tony, take over.
That's kind of a tongue twister.
It has to be Joseph's favorite movie.
Yeah. It's and it's really funny and really good. Now, I did watch it with Wes, and he did not like it at all. I can hear Amanda gasping right now as I said that. But no, I mean, I think it's worth seeking out for anybody that likes horror movies, right?
Yeah, well, no, it sounds great. I do need to watch it. Isn't it directed by a woman?
Yeah, Jackie Kong.
That is a woman, isn't it? Rather than like Jackie Chan. It was a woman.
Yeah, she's a woman. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Oh, and we'll definitely. It's, those kind of films you think I've got to watch that at some point, and I've just never got around to it because I think it never got released in the UK uncut. I think it was always quite heavily cut here, which is part of the reason I probably didn't seek it out. But I think I definitely will. So excellent.
You definitely. You definitely would want to see it with the gore intact. I mean, it is it's a bloody movie, so you wouldn't want to watch a cut version of that.
Could you classify as a slasher? Or...
I believe so.
Yeah?
I mean,
Okay.
It's two guys, and they're massacring people and like cooking up their bodies and serving in their vegetarian restaurant.
It's a vegetarian restaurant, is that? Okay.
Yeah, they run a vegetarian restaurant. One of my favorite scenes is when they bring two women back, and one of the women watches her friend get killed, and then she takes off running out the back door, but then she comes back and she's like, "Oh God, my purse." And she runs back inside to get her purse before she tries to run out again.
Really? Fantastic. That is definitely, I shall make it a mission to watch that. Excellent. Okay, was that everything, or is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Well, I did watch Slumber Party Massacre Part 3, and
Okay.
I adore the Slumber Party Massacre movies. I love all of them. And Part 3 is really, really good, and the more I watch it, the more I like it. I might actually classify it above Part 2.
Well, Part 2 is really, really cheesy, isn't it? In a
Yes.
kind of very over the top way. But Part 3 is actually quite dark, isn't it, towards the end?
Actually, it's probably the darkest in the series because, I think the killers kill him because he was molested and it really messed him up. And then when the girls try to hit on him, he snaps, basically.
It was kind of really
Also,
interesting. Sorry.
Slumber Party 3 is actually a whodunit, or half of it is.
Yeah.
Unlike
pretty
the other
much.
two. Unlike the
But
previous.
don't look at the video covers for it because it pretty much gives away who the killer is.
Yes. I mean, I hate that when the video covers. It's like the Alice, Sweet Alice, or Holy Terror. The film you picked, Nathan, for the score you really liked. One of the video covers in the UK, the old ones, actually has the picture of the killer attacking somebody on the front cover. Which is a really bad idea for a whodunit, isn't it? But there you go.
Yeah.
So, excellent. How about you, Joseph? Have you been catching up with anything?
I watched Friday the 13th Part 7 on the big screen whilst in Baltimore, and I was never a huge fan of this movie, but having seen it on a big screen, my opinion has changed. I had a lot of fun with it, and there was a moment in the audience where a man dressed as Jason came and sat down and started watching the film, and every time someone on screen would die, he would mimic their death scenes in the audience, and people kept looking at him, and that was kind of amusing. Now, I would still like to see this uncut because I think it would make a world of difference. But sitting in an audience, I just had a better appreciation for it. It's a lot of fun, and it's really silly and over the top. And Laura Park Lincoln, who we met, by the way, name dropping, she really puts Jason through the ringer. I mean, she beats the holy hell out of him, and there's moments where when his mask gets ripped off and he's got that all decrepit zombie-looking face, he still has all these facial expressions like, "God damn you, bitch! You do that one more time, I'm going to rip you in half." And then yet she keeps doing her Carrie magic on him, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun.
I really like that film. I think we discussed it already, haven't we? I mean, saying that I hold it in high regard to a number. Certainly, Part 5. I prefer it to Part 5 because I watched it recently.
Yes, I second that inhalation.
Hey.
What you second that inhalation of you think I'm wrong?
That
don't
gasp.
you?
Yeah, I think number 5 is quite brilliant, to be honest, and I think number
thank
7.
you, Eric.
I think
Thank
number
you,
7 is mediocre.
What do you think, Nathan, on that question?
I kind of think that I agree with them about Part 5, but I don't think Part 7's mediocre. I think Part 7 is really, really good. I actually don't care that much for Part 6.
Right. Yeah. It can wax and wane with the Friday movies, but I like all of them. I didn't like Part 5 at all when I saw it originally back in the 80s on video because I thought it was such a change of pace, and it just kind of was taking the piss out of it, and it was kind of, it just didn't, after part 4, which was so good and quite dark, I just didn't like that change of pace. Plus it had all the gore cut out of it, so it didn't really make much sense. There didn't seem to be any point it being there, really. But part 7, I just think is a lot of fun. And of course, if you've got the DVD that came out, Region 1 DVD of part 7, it has all the extra gore, obviously not cut back into the film, but very, very poor quality. Sort of, that kind of time-coded sort of video tapes. Talking of which, I don't know if you saw, I posted on Hysteria Live's Facebook group, but Retro Slashers, which is, as you know, is a fantastic website that Amanda by Night writes for, and so do a lot of other very talented people, including you've written for them, Nathan, haven't you?
No, I don't think so.
Oh no, okay, so I'm getting mixed up. But it's that somebody's put the fabled lost scenes from the end of Friday the 13th Part 3, and we'll be talking about our Dana in a little bit, I'm sure. But they've taken, I think there was snapshots, I'm not sure why they were taken, but from the original negative, which shows very poor quality, but actually in a kind of flicker book sort of way of how that scene actually played out, rather than just seeing photos. So that's worth checking out. It may be the nearest we'll ever get to seeing uncut footage, but after what happened My Bloody Valentine, who knows. So we're going to be talking a bit more about the Monster Mania experience, Joseph, Nathan, in a minute. I'll just quickly wrap up with mine. I haven't had the chance to watch a great deal since we last recorded. The only kind of slasherific film I've seen was actually, like Erik, is another giallo, which is Aldo Lado's, or Lado, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, Who Saw Her Die? From 1972, which features Jaws Lazenby, who was that Bond, the Australian Bond back in late 60s, was it? And it's got an amazing Ennio Morricone soundtrack, which, like most of the soundtracks that Ennio Morricone did for giallos, were very good, with like a child's choir. Very distinctive, and also it's very distinctive because most of the people killed in it, or at least a couple of them, are young children, which is still a taboo to some degree, and probably was very much taboo when this film was made in 1972. And the director made the year before Short Night of the Glass Dolls, which was a slightly bizarre giallo. Whereas this one, Who Saw Her Die, is also set in Venice, so it makes the best use of that kind of death in Venice and what's that film?
Dirty Dancing.
Right. Dirty Dancing, did you say?
Yeah.
No, not Dirty Dancing.
That's not the one you're thinking of.
Don't look now. I'm thinking of. God,
oh,
you always
right.
have to bring Dirty Dancing into it, don't you? But yes, it's worth watching. It's one of the slower giallos. It actually, again, what's quite different to it is actually, I think it's obviously probably inspired by Don't Look Now, because there's lots of musings about loss and the loss of children and things like that, which you don't really find in giallo really, or slasher movies. It's more about the murder and the mayhem rather than the actual aftermath. But it's worth a look. If you are on a giallo tip, then I would give it a go. So.
Isn't is her name Nicolette Elmy?
Yes, she's in that playing
because she's in Footprints on the Moon as well.
She got around, didn't she?
And a zillion other movies.
Wasn't she the little girl? No, was she the little girl who got her head blown off in The Beyond?
No, that's the common mistake people make. It's somebody different, although they look kind of similar.
They look, yeah. I wonder if they just use, because she was in House by the Cemetery, wasn't she? Or was that a different one? I get confused.
I'm not sure. I know she's in Deep Red as well.
She's in Deep Red, that's
she's
right.
in Demons.
Yes. I wonder whatever happened to her. It would be great to get an interview
with
her.
I know.
Because, and also if we could get an interview with her and Bob, not Bob, who was the kid?
Giovanni Frezzi or something.
Yes, with the blonde mop-haired kid who's always dubbed by a middle-aged woman putting on a speaker voice.
Female, you are a female. That kid.
That's him.
Well,
that's from Blade in the Dark, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Well, we'll make it an aim to try and get those two on. Who knows? We will. But what I was going to say is we're also going to talk about. Unfortunately, while me and Erik were stuck on this side of the Atlantic, in rainy old Britain and Ireland.
Excuse me, I got severely sunburnt in St Helens last Saturday.
Oh, did you? Okay.
And I'm actually peeling now.
Right. Well, it's probably raining in Dublin, wasn't it?
It probably
Rock
was.
lobster.
I'm a rock lobster, indeed.
Well, while Erik was baking and I was probably drunk somewhere, Joseph and Nathan were whooping it up with the celebrities and Dana Kimmel at Monster Mania in Baltimore. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, Monster Mania 18 was in Baltimore, Maryland, in the United States, and it was a Friday the 13th retrospective. Several cast members, Sean Cunningham. They had a few non-Friday the 13th celebrities there as well, and the requisite dealer rooms and all that good stuff. But, after 10, 11 hours in the car, we kind of finally arrive, and we all kind of crash for a couple of hours before we meet up. And I go up to Nathan and his now fiance Wes's room, and Nathan goes to relieve himself, and Wes pulls me aside and says, "Hey, don't say anything, but I've been talking to Amy Steele for the past 3 months, and I'm about to use her to propose to Nathan." And I'm like, "Wow, totally cool." So he's like, "Take Nathan down to the bar, and I'll be down there soon." I'm like, "Okay." So we go down to the bar, and we're sitting there, and I keep looking to the side, waiting for Amy and Wes to show up, and eventually I see them both coming, and I get my camera ready to record, and I think Wes pointed out the wrong table because he couldn't really see our faces, so he saw someone that looked similar. So Amy goes to the wrong table next to us, and she starts talking to this guy. She's like, "Hey, are you Nathan?" And I'm like, "Uh-oh." And I could see the facial expression on Wes, and he's like about to lose it, so I'm like tapping Amy on the shoulder. I'm like, "Amy?" She's like, "Yes." And I'm like, "This over here is Nathan." So she turns to talk to Nathan, and she's like, "Hi, I'm your biggest fan." And Nathan is like a deer in headlights. He doesn't know what to say. He's just sitting there in complete shock. And he's like, "Well, how do you know me? I mean, I made a couple of home movies when I was a kid." And she's like, "Well, I've always been your biggest fan until I met that guy." And then here comes Wes, all dressed out like the Bachelor, and he puts his arms around Nathan, and he gives the whole spiel about what people who are in love do, and he proposed, and Nathan said yes. And why am I telling this? Nathan should be the one telling that.
Well, congratulations, Nathan.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, you want to interject a little bit here,
Much
Nathan?
appreciated. Well, I mean, what can I say? I mean, I sat there not knowing exactly what was going on. And big thanks to Amanda and David, Amanda by night and her husband, because their jobs were to keep me distracted while all this is going on around me. I mean, they actually made me sit with my back to the entrance of the bar. Everything was planned. So, I mean, I didn't suspect anything. So.
Fantastic. And I bet it must have been, was it that kind of slightly otherworldly, you feel like you've gone into a different dimension?
Well, she's always been my favorite Friday the 13th heroine, so, yeah. I mean, it was wild. I mean, she was one of the main people I wanted to meet there anyway. It was all about Amy Steele, and then having her walk up to me and, be involved in all that, and just the fact that she agreed to help Wes do it is really awesome. So she just shot way up in my book.
Yeah, here's to Amy. I shall raise my glass to Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, thank you, Amy.
Very much.
We ended up meeting her a couple more times throughout the weekend. She ended up giving Nathan some free T-shirts, and on top of her, we met a few Friday the 13th celebrities. One, of course, is the lovely Dana Kimmel, who I was fearsome that she was going to be standoffish, but she was a total sweetheart. And when we told her how much we've always loved her, I mean, you could see the tears welling up in her eyes. Like, she didn't know what to think, like that she had this huge fan base. And I think there was rumors going around how she just kind of denounced all of this stuff. But, from her actions, it seems like she just didn't really know. But, we met her, we met, you can actually read all about this on the Body Count Continues, but, we met just about all of the Friday the 13th celebrities. I met a couple of other ones like Lana Henriksen and, Angus Scrim. But it was a great weekend. I mean, the whole Amy thing was very surreal, but I'll never forget that. It was really incredible. Everybody there was really, really nice. And I have to say that I was unsure, about how much time I get to talk to Adrienne King, Alice from part 1, because her line was really long. But I was surprised when we went to her table. She took all the time in the world to talk to us. I mean, she was very sweet. We spoke with her for about almost 10 minutes, where she just, you know, she kept talking, and you know, as you and Erik both know, she, along with a couple of others, gave us some quotes that we will be featuring hopefully soon. But she was really nice, and Lauren Marie Taylor from Friday the 13th 2 was probably my favorite meet, because we got to talking about Girls Night Out, and she was completely shocked because, you know, she's like, you know, you're the first person who's ever mentioned Girls Night Out at any of these conventions. I'm like, well, I just love the film. And she's like, you know, I actually married the guy with the glasses in that film. I'm like, yeah, in real life? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, I can't remember his name. So she's like, well, let me just call him. So she gets him on the phone, and it's the guy who played Bostwick in Girls Night Out. So they're really married, and I can hear him over the phone like, she's like, I got a couple of fans from Girls Night Out here. What character did you play in Girls Night Out? He's like, Bostwick. And we were like, whoa, that was just totally cool. And she was really nice, and
that's
it was just
amazing,
awesome.
isn't it?
Totally awesome.
Well, definitely. I mean, hopefully we can get some of those on the people on the show at some point, and who knows, maybe the dream will come true, and Dana will come to us, and like a great dove from above will come. Sorry.
So I was just saying, I was looking at the pictures that Joseph sent us, and I was just amazed that like none of the actresses have aged at all. I mean, Lauren Marie Taylor, is that her surname?
Mm-hmm.
Like she looks like she maybe looks like 3 or 4 years older than she did in Friday the 13th Part 2. I mean, it's amazing.
Wow. Well, that's from all that running from Jason, I guess.
Probably, yeah.
Keep a fit.
The cardio.
She didn't do any running. She just backed into the door, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. She didn't run.
Well,
in her brown knickers.
Yeah, I don't think she ran in Girls
She got
Night Out.
asked about those too, actually.
Did she? What did she say?
Yes. Well, I think they were asking about were they hers or were they the I guess the costumer, and I believe she said it was the costumer. Somebody actually had a pair like that, and they took them to her to sign at the convention.
Really? It must be. I always thought it must be quite weird for people, you know, doing those kind of cons, because most people, as we know, horror movie fans are well adjusted. You know, people who wouldn't harm a fly, and you know, are good natured. But you must get the odd wacko coming up to people and then sort of having to smile through it and think, "God, get them away from me," kind of thing. But coming back to Dana, did she acknowledge Sweet 16 at all?
Yeah, she did. She actually had pictures. She actually had pictures from the film.
Okay.
Remember, Nathan? She had photographs from the film for sale. Remember,
Really?
There was like a couple of piles of her in Sweet 16.
Yeah, and actually, she wanted to talk more about it than Friday the 13th Part 3. I think she prefers Sweet 16.
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it? I wonder why she didn't get involved in the. Well, maybe she wasn't asked to get involved with the DVD release, because the girl who played Melissa in Sweet 16 was in that, and again looked amazing as well for her age. But yeah, it'd be lovely to meet these people. I mean, you know, one day I am going to save up, hopefully, enough money. And can you hear that? Yes, not me relieving myself. It's just pouring himself a glass of red wine.
I was about to ask. Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be great for us to actually have a proper, you know, sort of catch up. And one day I'd be able
to
go over.
Come to Baltimore.
I'd love to.
Hey, while we're on the subject of Baltimore, isn't that where House and Sorority Row are featured?
Yes.
Funnily enough, it was. Mm-hmm. It was, wasn't it? Yes. So
I do need to mention a couple more things. We went to the Friday the 13th Part 2 Q&A, and I had a great time instigating a standoff between Amy and the Steve Dash, who played Jason. I asked them if she actually made contact with his nuts when she kicked him, and how many times they had to do that take. And she's like, well, why don't you just ask Steve Dash? He would love to tell you that. And everyone turned around. Steve Dash was in the back of the room pointing at her. He's like, next time, bitch, you're dead. And the crowd just went wild. It was great.
Oh, fantastic.
But I also want to mention that we did get to hang out with several board members. One was David, what's his last name? Felter, Nathan?
I think it's Felter.
Felter, okay. He's Euro Zombie on the board. He's kind of a new member, but we hung out with him, and he showed me his incredible poster collection, which puts mine to shame. And of course, we hung out with BTK and Rembrandt 36, and had a good time with them. You know, just drinking and chit chatting the hours away. But it was a really fun time.
Excellent. Well, I'll say one day, you know, we'd love to join you and have maybe do Hysteria Continues from some other con. I mean, talking of cons, quite literally, wasn't there another Friday the 13th convention that went horribly wrong?
Yes. It was the Texas Frightmare, and I forget the guy's name, but apparently he booked a lot of he booked a hotel, and
Yeah.
he took a lot of people's money from ticket sales, and the con just didn't happen. It was supposed to happen on like May 17th, and a lot of the celebrities didn't even know about it. And when people were contacting him about getting their money back from their ticket sales, he's like, well, I can't give you the money back now because it's all tied up in an escrow account. And apparently he's being sued and for fraud and all kinds of things. I mean, it's really crazy.
Right, okay. And obviously we'll add, for legal purposes, it was all allegedly, but I think...
It is allegedly.
Yes.
This is just what I've heard.
Absolutely. Well, it's all hearsay, but it's kind of all over the web if you wanted to see that. But I'm just glad that wasn't the con that I picked to come over to the States, to do that. But as I sort of mentioned to you guys, Teenage Wasteland looks like it may have an American publisher soon. So maybe if that gets published, then I might be able to take some time off and come over to the States to help promote it, which would be great. But we shall see. No, nothing, no firm plans yet. But and it'd be great if it was. I could come over and do something at a convention. That'd be even better. So,
have you ever been to a convention, Justin?
I've been to, I have been to a kind of convention. It's one when I lived in Brighton. And when I say kind of convention, I can imagine...
Is it more of a sci-fi one, was it?
Well, it
more of a
was
supermarket.
Well, it wasn't. It was just kind of... I always remember, who was it? Ingrid Pitt, who, rest in peace, was just sat there looking very bored, and that's the only person I recognised. And it was somebody who, I don't know, sort of fell over on Doctor Who in 1976 kind of thing was there as well, and it was just lots of people selling sci-fi stuff and a few horror bits and pieces. But of course, I'm sure it pales to the American conventions. Although I think in Birmingham, the NEC, the big the arena, there are bigger ones, but we don't really have those kind of horror conventions like they do in the States. It'd be great if we did.
Like, we don't have any conventions as such
I just
over
want
here.
to say that Eric and Justin, you both need to get your arses on a plane and get over here next year or the year after, so we can have a little round table discussion and record or something.
Because even though Justin is only like maybe 100 miles away, I still have never met him in the flesh.
No.
Well, you're separated by water, right?
We are, yeah. But I mean, it'd be a half hour flight to Bristol.
Right.
Well, exactly. Well, you're always welcome here, Eric.
Thanks. I do like
how
cats.
cute.
You do like cats? Yeah. Well, no, come over for next time you're down this way, Eric. We'll go for a beer and bitch about Nathan and Joseph.
Great.
So,
Joseph, can I just ask you before we get off the topic of Monster Mania, were there any other films screened apart from Friday the 13th Part 7?
They screened a few of the Friday the 13th films. I mean, we caught the end of Part 6, and we watched Part 7, and I believe they screened Pumpkinhead because Lance Henriksen was there. And Nathan,
Phantasm.
Phantasm, yes.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right, okay. Did they, just going back to Part 2, because there was all that controversy about who was the real Jason, wasn't there? Was it Steve Dash or the other guy whose name escapes me?
Warrington Gillette. Yeah.
Yes,
it was Steve Dash was in the costume. Warrington Gillette went through the window. That's it.
Is that basically the breakdown, isn't it? Okay.
Amy said that's all he did was went through the window. She doesn't remember him doing anything else.
Okay. Yeah, because it's just been one of those things, isn't it? It's been, touted about who's the real Jason. It's a bit like Bucks Fizz, there's the kind of who's the real Bucks Fizz. There's about 45 of them.
If you ask me, they're both Jason. They both played him.
Yeah.
They're both Jason.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Okay, well, shall we move on to our feature presentation, guys?
Well,
Indeed,
should we
yes.
wait a minute.
Yeah.
Should we do we have some listener feedback, plus doesn't Nathan have a...
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm, although I've written it down in front of me, obviously that second glass of wine has gone to my head. So why don't we go into, Nathan, what was your... recapping, of course, we did last time, we talked about this, and we said that we did our top 3 what the fuck moments, or maybe top 5 or whatever it was, before Nathan joined the podcast. So each time we do this, we're going to have a different what the fuck moment from Nathan. So do you want to take it away, Nathan? What's your one for this time?
My what the fuck moment for this time is from a shot-on-video film called Night Ripper from the 80s. Now, if you haven't seen it, you might want to fast forward a little bit because I am going to spoil something in it at the end. Not that it matters.
How are we going to fast forward this?
Well, let me put it to you this way. I don't think you guys would like it anyway, so
Okay.
you're not missing anything.
I'm trying to think, have I seen it? I know it's quite
the Tom
obscure, isn't
Savini
it?
one, is it?
No,
that's just the
sorry.
Ripper.
That's just the
sorry,
Ripper, yeah.
It's quite an obscure one, isn't it? Night Ripper. It's quite difficult to get
It's
hold
on
of.
YouTube, but I mean,
Okay.
it's such an awful movie. I wouldn't recommend it. And when I tell you this, you may actually want to seek it out just for this scene alone, but I won't spoil who the killer is. But basically, there's a scene at the end where the heroine is in a room full of mannequins, and she's backed up against a mannequin, I guess kind of hiding from the killer. Well, the killer sees her, and the killer tries to stab her with a knife, but instead the knife goes into the mannequin's hand. So then the killer loses control of the knife, and the mannequin's now holding it. And the killer lunges for the girl, but in doing that, trips over the mannequin's foot and falls on the floor. Now, because the killer's tripped over the mannequin's foot, the mannequin starts rocking, and then the mannequin just kind of falls forward, and the knife sticks in the killer's throat. And that's how the killer dies.
That's called Just Desserts, isn't it? Or
Yeah, so that's kind of a moment I was thinking, really? I mean, that's how they decide to...
Sounds like Frank Spencer.
The finale.
Yeah. Some of us do have them.
Everybody, though, look it up on YouTube. And if you don't want to watch the movie, and trust me, you probably don't because it's pretty bad, just watch the ending, and you'll see what I mean. It has to be seen to be believed.
Excellent. Well, I will look that one up. It sounds like a one to avoid, but as ever, that is always a red rag to a bull. It kind of means the more we want to avoid it, and the more we have to watch it. So thanks for that. That sounds like it sounds like a kind of cut price sort of tribute to Mario Bava. Is that what they were going for? With all the kind of the mannequins everywhere, because it's like they always seem to do it in Mario Bava movies with like mannequins like Blood and Black Lace, but I imagine this is probably slightly less accomplished.
Yeah, I'd say a little bit more than slightly.
Okay, right, fair enough. Excellent. Well, thank you, Nathan. And you'll be returning. Will you be returning the next episode with another what the fuck moment?
Yes, already have it lined up.
Brilliant. Okay, well, that's great. Well, let's get back to feedback. And because obviously we're going to be recording, as I said, we're going to be recording some shows in advance. In fact, it's a slasher-packed weekend because we're doing a double recording on Sunday. So we will not be having feedback until for about a month, but doesn't mean don't write in, because please
we should also mention that in this episode and in the next episode we will not have our usual top threes.
Yes, or the following episode either, I don't think. So we'll be back with top threes in about a month and a half.
Something like that.
Yeah, okay, excellent. But do write in, because we love hearing from you, because we don't know if we're doing something right or doing something wrong, and it's that the feedback, it makes it kind of truly what's the word for it? Into whatever
worthwhile.
I think, yes, that's the word we're going for. So, Joseph, what feedback have you got?
Well, I have three. This one is from forum member Cabe Gaplin, who says, "Long-time listener, first-time commenter. Congratulations on your 10th podcast on a subject matter that is very dear to my heart. Congratulations also on the Bollywood length of it. I wondered if you were going to take a break in the middle so you all could bedazzle us with a stirring rendition of the Mohabbat Mein Yo song from Shh. I'm sure you hear this all the time, but you truly are the Fab Four of slasher movie podcast hosts. I'll leave it up to you to decide which one of you is Ringo. And if I may interject, I think I'm George. But anyway, I'm also glad you revealed on... What's that?
So it's open for debate, but carry on.
I'm Pete Best.
Oh, okay. I'm also glad you revealed on a recent podcast that Toya has a last name. I truly thought all this time you were talking about Michael Jackson's sister.
Really? Well, they both had the similar kind of musical career.
Can I interject for a second?
Go ahead.
I work for the sort of National Radio and Television Company of Ireland, and somebody gave me a tip-off saying, Erik, Toya is going to be on in the television centre on this Friday. You've got to check her out. And I got really, really excited. It turned out to be La Toya Jackson, and I was really disappointed.
No.
It's in my top 5 big disappointments of my life.
Along with Toya.
He says, that's okay. At least she isn't married to a man named Budgie. I don't know what that means, but okay.
That's
Because
referring to Susie.
Susie
She's
used to be married
Budgie
to
from-
Budgie.
But
They're divorced now. Susie is allegedly with the ladies now. So
of course,
yes. So
what's Budgie's real name?
What's Budgie? Peter Clark, I think it's Peter Clark, something like that. So,
Oh,
but apparently he
okay.
had Budgie when he was a kid, and it's a nickname which stuck. But thank you, Cabe. That's really good. And we should probably come up with a Bollywood style song to interject at some point in the future. Maybe in the 3 weeks we're taking off, where we could, when we're alone, we could come up with some ideas for Bollywood style songs. Because I think, have you ever seen any Bollywood films?
No, I still haven't. I still want to see that one. What was the other one you recommended?
Kuch to High, Shush, and I can't remember. There's a couple of other ones, but Shush is
which one does Shush ape? Is it I Know What You Did Last Summer? Is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
No. I think that's Scream. I can't remember which one. One of them does rips off I Know What You Did Last Summer. I can't remember. It may be Kuch to High, actually. I think it rips off I Know What You Did Last Summer and Urban Legends quite shamelessly. And the brilliance of them is they're all about 52 hours long, and then most of it is spent with being really cutesy and then suddenly breaking for a 12-hour dance routine, and then someone getting stabbed, and then everyone crying, and then singing about it. And then everyone runs down the corridor away from the killer, and then stops and has a dance routine. So it's pure brilliance, but it's also some of the things you either love or hate. But I think as an aside, we should maybe in the 3 weeks we're not doing it, we should actually do a proper review of them, because to be honest, it might be a bit pointless, but to do to actually watch them so we can have a talk about them. Because Joseph and Nathan, have you ever seen any Bollywood slashers?
I saw it. The one, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the one where the killer, like for a period of time, has like a clown type mask, and the kids are on a beach, and they're getting killed off.
Yeah, that's that one. The shush.
Okay, I saw that one.
Yeah. So you've got an idea, but Joseph, you've not had the pleasure.
I've seen a few. I saw a clip of one, but I haven't got around to actually watching one yet.
Okay. No,
I had to fast forward a lot.
But back to Cabe's email. He says, where did I leave off here? Here we go. Your podcast hosting skills have increased exponentially from when you started all those many months ago, and the discussions flow smoothly in spite of the micro Skype world you live in. Your attempts at scatological humor, however, are, for lack of a better word, corny.
What do you mean attempts?
So,
I think it's quite accomplished now. Although now we're not doing the top three for three episodes.
So he gets a couple of weeks off. Weeks off.
Number two joke at the very start of the podcast.
Oh yeah, and I'll probably do it next time as well.
You brought it down, so I do apologise to Cabe and all our cultured listeners.
Don't forget that Justin is from the country that gave us the Carry On movies, so we have to excuse him, really.
I'm very proud of it, and I'm trying to think what kind of Irish things apart from. Well, I suppose Father Ted wasn't very double entendre, was it?
No, it was single entendre, really. Yeah. I don't think we did have a double entendre staple over here.
Well, I'm proud that we're keeping the British end up, as it were, through that, and so Carry On, Benny Hill,
Kenneth Williams.
I mean, the list is endless. I'm sure we could finger a lot more if we thought about it, but we won't. So
you nearly made me choke on my Coke Zero.
On your what?
Rotten.
On your Coke? Sorry, I misheard that. Okay. So well, thank you, Kate. Moving on swiftly.
He says,
"Yeah,
what you excel in most of all are the interviews you've managed to get with so many people, both famous and infamous in the world of slasherdom, and it's wonderful to hear them talk freely about their experiences with films that are both famous and infamous in the world of slasherdom. So here's a top 3 subject you've probably already thought of, but could be fun to cover in a future podcast. Top 3 slasher motives. It could be a motive suggested by other character about the slasher, or it could be one suggested by the slasher himself. Some of the slashers have some piss-poor reasons for their slashing. I think the slasher in the pool has a particularly ridiculous one, if I remember correctly. Keep up the stellar work. Cabe Gaplin."
Excellent, thank you, Cabe. And I think that is a great top 3. So we shall probably put that in the vault for future excavation, and I'm sure we'll get back to that. So, have you got any other feedback?
I got 2 more.
Okay, excellent.
One from John Woodward, who says, I'm writing again to let you know how pleased I was to hear your podcast on favorite slasher film scores or songs. I was the one who wrote in to request it several shows back. I was especially pleased to hear on your latest show that you would soon be covering My Bloody Valentine, a film that holds a special place in my heart as I happen to live in the same small theater town as Cynthia Dale, one of its stars. She was kind enough to sign my DVD and is a wonderful person. Maybe you could snag her for an interview. Just as an aside, I'm going to name drop a bit. My town is also home to Scott Wentworth and Richard Fitzpatrick, who have each been in one of George Romero's lamer zombie pictures, as well as Patricia Collins, who had a bit part in Pen, a Canadian creepy dummy film. Also, a few years ago, we lost Richard Monette, who played the priest in Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2, who was kind enough to sign my DVD not 2 months before he died. Anyway, my wife was wondering if any of you can remember a slasher film that featured a montage. The notorious 1980s movie Stand By, wherein scenes of people either fixing a house, choosing clothes, or working out a la Rocky is cut together with a popular pop song by, say, Toya or some other musical genius. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but you plucky lad.
I can.
I can as well.
Sorority House Massacre.
Evil Laugh.
Evil Laugh, I was thinking of, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorority House Massacre is a fantastic one where they're throwing very gaudy dresses onto the bed, all to the tune of some horrible mid-80s pop song that even I, as an 80s aficionado, can't defend.
Yeah.
Evil Laugh, of course.
To try on Cindy's clothes.
Yeah, and eat Melanie's ice cream.
Oh, God, yes.
I still need to check out my VHS copy.
Actually, speaking of that, I checked. Do you know the magazine Is It Uncut? It's produced by Midnight Media in the UK.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I was looking through their review of Sorority House Massacre, and they do confirm that the US DVD is 10 minutes shorter than the UK VHS.
Okay.
It's all incidental stuff. It's all just conversations about hair and food and stuff. But yeah,
well, obviously,
so it did corroborate my theory that the VHS was longer.
Well, obviously, I wouldn't do this for legal reasons, but if theoretically it wasn't illegal to do it, would you like me to burn you a copy of the uncut version?
If the baby Jesus isn't listening, then yes, please.
Okay. The only weird thing is I've been doing some projects with some trailers. I've been ripping trailers for a project I'm doing, and somehow I managed to make it work so I could record NTSC, which was the American system, onto PAL and come out in colour, which is great, but now I can't get it back to PAL, so I don't know what I've done with that. But anyway, obviously I wouldn't be doing that anyway, Erik, because obviously I'm sure it's highly illegal. Highly illegal. So, Joseph, and you had a third one.
Well, he says, and have any of you seen a film called Malevolence by Stephen Mina? It's a nice, low-budget throwback to the John Carpenter-styled slasher film. Low on gore, high on atmosphere, and featuring a nice lo-fi score from the director. His follow-up is called Bereavement, which I have yet to see. Let me know your opinions. Meantime, cheers and keep it up. I mean, keep up the good work. Oh, you know what I mean. John Woodward.
It sounds like one of those double entendres that we...
Sounds like suspiciously like one.
Last, but certainly not least, I have one from our great friend, Tosca Tops.
Yay!
Before you say that, before we get to Tosca, can we just to answer the last one about Malevolence? Have you seen Malevolence?
I know.
I have not seen it yet.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't.
I haven't seen it either.
I don't think I have. I think if I have, I was very drunk, and I can't remember. I do know about it. I know there was a sequel. So I think it's a One Love Film, which is like Netflix Q, and it's been on there for about 2 years. Bizarrely, I don't know why it's so popular, because you wouldn't have thought it would have been that popular. It wouldn't have come to me in 2 years. But I think we should make it a mission to watch Malevolence. I'll try and watch it before on the next show, because we're recording the day after tomorrow. But by the time we come back, let's see if we can watch it. So, sorry, apology, Tosca.
From our great friend Tosca Topsocks, who his real name is Kevin, and he lives in Birmingham. I don't know if that's Alabama or if that's in... There's a Birmingham in the United Kingdom, isn't there?
There is. The second biggest city in the UK, if I'm not mistaken.
About an hour away from where I live. Yes.
Okay, so... whether he's in Alabama or the United Kingdom, he says, "You guys rock." And that was a terrible accent, sorry. He says, "You guys rock. Loving the Hysteria Continues podcast. They are getting better and better and are very funny. Would love an episode on The Prowler, one of my all-time faves. Keep up the fantastic work. By the way, Mr. Kurzweil, Teenage Wasteland, so good, a top read." Tosca Top Socks.
Thank you, Tosca, a.k.a. Kevin. And I think he is probably in Birmingham, UK, because...
with a name like that, he'd have to be.
But he very kindly commented on iTunes, which, again, if you listen to the show, another great way to comment is to go to, just put into Google iTunes Hysteria Continues, and it will come up with a page there, and you can comment on the podcast. And I think we've spoken about this before. There's different ones. There's one for the US, there's one for the UK, and they're different. So if you comment on them, you won't see it in the US, you won't see it in the UK. And if you're in Belize, maybe there's iTunes Belize or iTunes, I don't know, Gran Canaria or something. So I don't know how it works, but Tosca, aka Kevin, I think his comment was on the UK one. So I believe you are just about an hour away from us, Tosca, and thank you very much for the kind words about the book and the podcast.
And a great name again, Tosca Top Socks.
Fantastic, excellent.
Great.
And Tosca, please write back in. I'm very curious where you came up with that name.
Yes, please.
So am I, yeah.
I really want to know.
Yeah, let's find out.
Justin, you have some feedback, don't you?
I do, yes. I got one today, actually. It was, hello, I just finished listening to episode 10 of the podcast. I wanted to leave some feedback. Great job as usual. Although I haven't seen The Slayer, I really enjoyed learning more about the film, and I've made it my mission to try and track down a copy, as I really want to see it now. Here are some slashers I hope you might consider covering for future episodes. It's Killer Workout, Madman, Silent Madness, Evil Laugh, Mutilator, and Chopping Mall. Keep up the good work, Robert. P.S. Toya is an old... Oh, no, actually, he didn't actually say that last bit, but...
Yeah.
But yeah, no, all good suggestions, and I'm sure we will get round to all of those.
And Tosca mentioned The Prowler as well, which would be one of my favourites too.
Well, that is a good one. The Prowler is a good one.
The Prowler is a good one, and we've had. It's not the first person who suggests that as well. I think
so. We may see that sooner than later, maybe.
Okay.
You never know. You never know.
Of course, we have to.
I love Chopping Mall as well. I have to say.
Chopping Mall is fantastic,
isn't it? Yeah.
And also the guy that we interviewed. Well, I interviewed for The Slayer. Robert Long. He is also Robert Short. I keep getting mixed up. But anyway, I hope he's not listening.
Robert Long is Rembrandt from the forum.
It's Robert Short. Then he did the robot effects on Chopping Mall, and there's a little bit about it.
They're not very realistic.
No, but they're not really meant to be, are they? So it's kind of like. But we did discuss one of the things.
They really are actually.
Yeah, that film's got that fantastic exploding head in it, isn't it?
It does, yeah.
And you even when you freeze frame it, even on VHS, you couldn't really see the cut, and that was I always remember being very, very impressed with that. And so yeah, it'd be a good one to come to. But we have discussed.
I think Amanda by Night's one of the people on her list, like the laminated list, like in Friends, Russell Todd from Friday the 13th Part 2.
Okay.
He was supposed to be at the convention this past weekend, but he didn't show up. A few people didn't show up. It was kind of...
If memory serves me correctly, I think Amanda has feelings for him.
Okay.
She does.
I could be wrong, though.
Amanda and it was Todd sitting in a tree. K-I-S-S-I-N.
I-N-G.
Yes. So... But I was just going to say...
Where's the baby carriage?
What I was going to say is that we have to have this discussion about we need to choose a slasher movie that is bad, basically. Put no finer point on it, is we need to choose a real shocker of a slasher movie, because at the moment we're choosing films that we really enjoy, which is great because we love talking about them, but not all slasher movies, even the most hardened aficionado, which we all are, we all know there are a few real out-and-out stinkers out there. And there's so good, there's bad, and they're so bad that they are bad. But we will, hopefully, at some point, not too distant future, be choosing a really bad film that we can have some fun with. So if you've got any suggestions for that, then keep them coming in. Sorry, excuse me. So that last bit was thank you from Robert. And I've just got a couple of... other quick ones, as it were. We've got feedback from Mark Huckle, who's hopefully forgiven us for calling him Mark Hucknall.
Mick Hucknall.
Mick Hucknall, that was the one, wasn't it? That was you, Erik, I remember.
Well, he does sound like Mick Hucknall.
You've never heard him
Mick
sing.
Hucknall,
Maybe Mark could send us an MP3 of him singing. What was one of their hits?
Money's Too Tight to Mention.
Yeah, I couldn't stand them. Couldn't stand that ginger twat. Anyway, not Mark, obviously. I don't know if you're ginger, and I hope you're not. But he says, "Great stuff, Justin." And you went for the top 3 masks, which is just awesome. Which, yeah, we had good fun doing that. So thank you, Mark. And also Johnny Krug. I'm not sure if it is that your real name, Johnny? I don't know, or maybe it's a kind of play on Kruger. But if it is your real name, then that's pretty cool. He said, listening to episode. Sorry, I don't know if that's suddenly become Australian. Episode 9.5 of the always amazing Hysteria Continues podcast. At Hysteria Lives, you guys rock. And I do apologise, Johnny, because you've got your own podcast, which I forgot to write down the name of, but I'm sure we'll give it a plug sometime in the future. So thanks for the feedback, guys. Have we got anything else to say before we come on to the feature presentation?
If you want to send us some feedback, you can check us out on iTunes, or you can send us an email at the.hysteria.continues@gmail.com.
Excellent.
So
yes.
There we go.
Something really cool happened this weekend at Monster Mania that I meant to mention earlier. Is we were hanging out with Amanda by night, and she said that a friend of hers got with her and said, "Hey, did you know that you were plugged on the last episode of the Hysteria Continues?" It was Amanda's friend. She said his name was Quentin. So I just wanted to say hi, Quentin. Thanks for listening.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks, Quentin. Thank you for listening.
Fantastic. And it sounds like we're getting lots of listeners, which we're really pleased about, because obviously it's great. We love talking to each other. You know, we have a great time chatting, but we're just pleased that other people are enjoying this. And we know...
Well, not to sound too overly, filleting ourselves, but Justin, didn't we tally our numbers and altogether, I mean, we've had over 10,000 unique listeners?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah,
so
something
pretty.
That's pretty amazing, actually.
Pretty good, as what's his name from Curb Your Enthusiasm would say. It's an awful impression, but please keep on listening, and it's only going to get better, possibly. So allegedly. So
no.
But anyway, shall we move on to the feature presentation? So you've been waiting for almost an hour now, but
take us
what
there,
we're going to
baby.
do, we are going to go enter the house on Sorority Row. Go, and Joseph's going to introduce our feature presentation. Take it away, Joseph.
Welcome home to the sorority of your nightmares. Someone is watching and waiting. Someone who knows their secret. Someone saw them kill, and now it's their turn. To celebrate their final days on campus, a group of college graduates decide to throw one last party at their prestigious sorority. But things unexpectedly take a gruesome turn when their old and grumpy house mother forbids them from doing so, and a cruel prank to get back at her ends in bloodshed. In an attempt to cover up their crime and forget the whole ordeal, the girls reluctantly decide to throw the party as planned. But little do they know, someone out there is well aware of their bloody secret and refuses to let it stay buried. I first saw the house on Sorority Row around the late 80s, but I kind of glossed over it and didn't pay much attention to it again until it was referenced in Scream 2. I decided to seek it out again, and I immediately fell in love with it. I'm not sure what put me off the first time I saw it, but perhaps it was a younger age, who knows. But watching it after the whole Scream debacle kind of brought slasher films to the forefront again, I was mesmerized by how well put together the film was, not to mention just how atmospheric and creepy it managed to be. The head in the toilet gag had me gasping in disbelief, and I remember thinking the end sequence with the final girl being used as bait to ensnare the killer was stuff only Hitchcock would dream up. I've since seen it at least 20 times, and each viewing I kind of appreciate it even a little more, and I'm always picking up on little nuances I may have missed prior. I can now say without hyperbole that it's easily in my top 10 slasher films of all time, and is one of the best from the golden era. And I don't know, how about you, Nathan?
Oh, well, I've always loved House on Sorority Row. I think it's an excellent film. It's very well written and well acted. And one thing, talking about being well written, is like the characters in it, I actually found myself kind of caring when they died, which, there's a lot of slasher movies out there where the characters have no characterization whatsoever. They're just cardboard cutouts. And I don't really care when they get killed off or anything. But in this one, I actually did care. I really like the characters. Even though she's not very bright, I love Jeannie. I feel bad for her. decided to run upstairs. I still don't understand that, but it's a really good movie, and I love the part where she's attacked at the gate, because I remember the first time, that kind of made me jump when I watched it because it's done so unexpectedly. I guess my only complaint, and it's not really about the movie at all, it's I've always disliked the U.S. VHS artwork, where I think it's the woman, she's just kind of sitting in a room with like not wearing much with her
looks like a Jackie Steele romance novel cover for a book.
It doesn't look like a slasher or a horror movie.
Jackie Steele's Harlequin romance novel.
Danielle Steele.
Danielle Steele, yeah. Who's Jackie Steele? I don't know who that is.
Jackie Collins and Danielle
Jackie
Steele.
Collins, yeah.
Jackie Stallone.
I got those mixed up. Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
I don't like that artwork at all, I have to say.
Well, that was the original artwork for the cinema release, wasn't it? And we're going to be talking to Mark very shortly, but I believe he didn't like it either, and it was kind of forced upon him. And I have actually. Have any of you guys seen the British sort of video box release?
Is it the one with all this they're wearing like a cap and gown with their skulls? Or they're like skeletons? No, I'm not sure where that came from, but I've got that. Actually, that artwork is accompanying a Robbins piece on Hysteria Lives. But also, if you look at the Hysteria Lives, there's the different artwork on there, and what it is there's a picture of the Harlequin, the clown, like a giant looming over the sorority house. And there's a girl asleep or dead, just a head. I have seen that before. I remember that.
And it's far more evocative of the film because the house in Sorority Row, the original artwork of the girl holding that kind of purple negligee around her, it kind of, it could easily be a porno, really, couldn't it? It doesn't. So it kind of, I think it sends out the wrong message. But, we'll come to a bit more about actually a bit of the background of the film. But the film was actually pretty successful, made quite a lot of money. So obviously that didn't put people off. But I don't think it's representative of the film at all. And sorry, Nathan, I don't want to interrupt your...
Yeah, Nathan, you got anything else you want to add to it?
I just wanted to add that there's also the scene at the end with the Harlequin and the final girl. That is probably one of my favorite suspenseful scenes in any movie. And I also love the way it was handled. Most of the time it would have just been a huge jump scare, but Mark Rosman didn't go for that. He instead went for, the more tense idea of the audience knows what the final girl doesn't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really good.
Yeah.
But anything else you want to add to that?
No.
Nathan? All right,
no,
well,
I'm good.
Okay, I'll just let Justin go because it seems like he had a few things he wanted to say.
Well, I've always got you can't shut me up, but no, I love the house in Sorority Row, and of course in England, in Britain, it was released as House of Evil because I presume it was because they worried that people wouldn't know what a sorority was, which is fair enough because we don't really have them in this country, and it was released at the cinema here, and I've got lots of factoids, but we'll come to those after we've spoken to Mark a little bit later. But I do remember actually seeing the video box of House of Evil. Must have been back in the mid 80s at a video shop opposite the old Odeon cinema, where I used to go past on the school bus and look at Friday 13th Part 2 and Happy Birthday to Me and Amateur for Horror and all those kind of old school now kind of film posters actually up at the up at the cinema when I went past, and I remember really wanted to see them. And opposite there was a video shop in Guildford, it's the town that I grew up, and one of the films they had in there, and this was post the whole Video Nasty debacle, was The House of Evil. And so I must have rented it maybe 84, 85 or something. And I remember really loving it, and I've kind of watched it lots of times since. Like you, Joseph, I probably watched it 20, if not 30 times over the years. And obviously it was great to see it come out on DVD, and we maybe talk about a little bit more about that in the a little bit. But I just think it's such an accomplished film, and certainly when you talk to Mark, he's not a fan of horror movies, or certainly not of slasher movies. And he'd probably be the first to admit that he made this as a business decision. But when you listen to the commentary that was on the now out of print DVD release, Region 1 DVD release, he's obviously got a lot of love for the film. It's his baby, and he is very proud of it, and rightly so. It's on a very small budget. I think the budget was something less than $500,000. was it just looks fantastic. He gets some amazing performances from most of the people in it. Of course, we do have to talk about obviously as we know, there is the famous.
No, she is alive.
Yes, the famous Morgan, Jodie Draghi, I think,
I think we've had that in our intros for the past 6 episodes.
I know. But the thing is, I love her. I mean, her character's great, and I think actually, again, coming back to Robin, she talks about her a little bit in her piece from her book, and saying about how she was hired to be the dippy blonde. And but my favourite bit actually in the commentary track on the DVD is Catherine McNeil laughs really loudly when she hears her say that, the famous sound, which is of course,
how do we know she is alive?
And it's got special resonance. I mean, everyone loves that line, and whether or not Jodie was trying to do that, or maybe it's some special genius, I don't know. But unfortunately, she never acted in anything else, so we'll never know. And if we could have tracked her down to talk about it, we would have done. But unfortunately,
we tried. We really tried.
We did try. But I do love the film. I mean, Catherine McNeil, I think, is an amazing final girl. She's resourceful.
Looks like Nicole Kidman. She looks just like Nicole Kidman.
Do you think she does? Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe a little bit.
She reminds me of Leslie Donaldson.
Yeah. Talking of Leslie Donaldson, just an aside, is you can buy signed pictures of Leslie through her Facebook page now, and it's well worth getting. I've got my eye on a picture of her with her head in a toilet bowl, which neatly segues on to what we'll be talking about with Robin later, but you can get a special signed photo from Leslie, so I'm going to be getting one of those for my wall very, very soon. But yeah, the film, I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, it's just so perfectly done. I mean, again, so coming back to Mark Rosman says that he's not a big fan of the slash movie, but he made one of the best ones, and certainly by 1983, the slash movie was pretty much, I mean, they were pumping out pretty crappy films. I mean, but having said that, without going.
Well, I mean, I don't really want to give away anything in his interview, but he said that he wanted to make a suspense film, and he was forced. They forced his hand into inserting all these gore shots. So he took a suspense film and essentially just turned it into a slasher film, unwillingly. But in the process, he made one of the best slasher films that you'll ever see.
Well, no, absolutely. And of course, the thing is, although it came out in January 81 in the States, it was actually made in the summer of 83 in January 83 in the States. It was made in the summer of 81, wasn't it? So it was actually made at the very height of the slash movie boom. And it's one of those films which I've got some details about. We'll talk about that. Sorry, just knocked a pen across the room. We'll talk about that a little bit after we've spoken to Mark. But it got released because there was such a glut of these films that I think it must have been delayed. So it got released and made a shed load of money. It was very, very successful. So I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about it because I've got lots more to say. But Erik, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I have to say I do really, really love House of Sorority Row, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a slasher fan who didn't like the film. I mean, it does all the formulaic things, but it does them so well. And as Nathan was saying, it makes the characters really likeable. I mean, even the bitchy one, Vicky, has kind of a likeable quality to her, and she's really watchable whenever she's on screen, even if she's being sort of obnoxious or evil or whatever. And I have to say, Robin Malloy does stand out as Jeannie. I mean, I felt really sorry for her after she's attacked and she comes in and she's traumatized and she's being comforted by Catherine McNeil's character. She reminded me a bit of Heather Matarazzo, if that's how you pronounce her name. In Hostel 2.
Or whatever her name is.
Yeah, because her character in Hostel 2 I found was really, really sympathetic, and I found her murder in that film quite traumatic, and the same for poor Robin Malloy in this film, ending up in the toilet a la whoever it was in Curtains. But the film is terrific. It's got a great Mark Rosman apparently was a protege of Brian De Palma, and you can see that in certain sequences. There's a scene where after the girls have after the prank has gone wrong, the girls are in the sorority house, and 4 out of 5 Doctors, the classic new wave band that we all know and love, are playing their set, and the camera pans across the room with each girl looking to each other with this look of guilt and fear on their faces, and it's like one continuous shot, and it's really expertly done, and it's amazing that this is Mark Rosman's first film. It's like, as you said, Justin, it's really accomplished, and even if he doesn't like the slasher genre, as you say, he's made one of the classics. It really is terrific. It's suspenseful. It's not overly gory. I mean, the gore inserts don't really stick out, apart from one scene where the guy walking through the woods gets stabbed through the neck. That's the only scene where it's sort of obvious that it's an insert. But otherwise, I mean, it flows really well. It looks like a lot of care and thought went into the film. I really like it, yeah.
Excellent. Well, I mean, shall we go straight to Mark's interview, guys, and then we can talk more about the film before we cut to Robin's interview. How does that sound?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds good to me.
Excellent. Well, what we can do a little bit, maybe we'll play a little bit of the music from the film. I'll have to remember to cut that in now, but we're going to talk to, Joseph spoke to the director of The House on Sorority Row, Mark Rosman, and we were very delighted to speak to him. And here it is.
Zeta, Eta, Theta, Iota, Lambda, Moon, Zeta.
Yeah, I heard Binzer failed. What? What do you care? I thought you hated him. I do, but I copied all his answers.
Are you in a frat?
Yeah, I'm a babe.
Really? You don't look like a Greek. Kata, Omicom, Pi. Hey, what are you? Ooh, yeah. He is cute.
Joseph here, and I'm speaking to the writer-director behind The House on Sorority Row, the incredibly talented Mark Rosman, who has graciously agreed to answer a few questions today. How are you today, Mark?
I'm very good, thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Where did you get the idea for The House on Sorority Row, and how long did it take for the film to come to fruition?
Well, let's see. I mean, I had graduated NYU and came back and moved in to my parents' house, actually, in Los Angeles, and started writing the script, and that was around 79, 80, somewhere around there. And I sat down and I wrote about 3 or 4 drafts, got it to the point where I felt it was right, and at first tried to get to studios because they were making low-budget horror films at the time, like Halloween and Friday the 13th. But nobody wanted it, and so finally a friend of mine who I had gone to high school with was working in Washington, D.C. for a company that made industrial films, and they wanted to make a feature. And they liked the script, and they agreed to put up a little bit of money, and I had scrounged up a little bit of money from family and friends and an investor or two. And we cobbled together, I think we started with about $125,000. And then the company in Washington, D.C. soon put in some more. But it was sort of a rocky road during shooting because we, at one point, we even ran out of money in the middle of the shoot. But eventually it was released in '83.
Excellent. Do you know how much the film grossed at the box office? There's a few websites that say one was over $10 million and the others say it was well below that. Do you know the final figures on the American box office take?
Well, I'm not sure exactly. I had always sort of seen or heard that $7 million, somewhere in there, in the 7 to 8 million range. But these box office figures are tough to verify. They're often the distributor is putting out certain numbers, and you kind of never know. I do know my investors never got paid back, mainly because of issues with the distributor.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was kind of a classic case of a distributor sort of taking all the rights. So my investors really never saw anything.
Can you tell us a little bit about I know you have spoken on this before, but the alternate ending, you said that the footage was lost. Is that true, or do you know what happened to it?
I don't know. We did shoot an alternate ending. It was actually the ending for the movie. That was in the script. I went in with the script with one ending that, because it was set in a hospital, we decided not to do it. And that was a scene where Catherine, at the end, after she's stabbed Erik and has fallen down the attic steps and she collapses, we cut to a few days later in a hospital, and she's being wheeled out in a wheelchair with her mother says she'll meet her at the car, and then it pan up the orderly wheeling her as Erik and wheels her down a little corridor and into a closet, and that's the end of her, and that was the end of the film. And we decided that it was just too hard to shoot in a hospital with our budget, so we changed it to the ending we did shoot, which was after she collapses in the attic, we cut to an overhead shot of the guy and the clown lying face down in the pool. And we start to pull back, and suddenly a swimmer comes up to the floating body, and it's like a paramedic. He turns the body over, and it's actually Catherine, and it's not Erik. And then we keep pulling back, and we see the police are there, and they're recovering all the bodies. So that was the actual ending we shot. And then when I showed it to the distributor, he said, he had very few notes. One was to colorize the beginning. We shot the beginning in black and white. So he said, okay, let's just give it a color. So we kind of made it blue. And his other note was to change the ending, because he can't have the hero die at the ending. It's too much of a downer. So we just cut it right at, the point where his eyes open at the bottom of the stairs. So we shot the footage, and we even cut it in the movie, but I don't know what happened to it. I have looked, and it's somebody will find it one day.
That would be excellent to see that. I mean, do you have a preference? Do you like the way the theatrical cut ended, or do you prefer the original ending that you scripted?
Oh, I prefer the original ending. I mean, ending with, eyes open, it just felt kind of cheesy to me. And, sequel time and all that. And it just, when I went into making this movie, one of the things that bugged me about these movies was that they, there's like all these people that get killed. I just thought it would be more interesting to do something else with it. So I preferred the other ending.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see the footage of that someday. But
yeah.
Harley Jane Kozak, who played Diane, she wrote a blog post recently where she said she was originally to be the 5th killed, but it was changed so that she was the 3rd killed. Do you know why there were changes, and were there script differences between the changes?
Boy, I do not know the answer to that, and I have no memory of that. We loved her character. She had a great character in the movie, and so it certainly had nothing to do, and we loved her performance and everything. So it had nothing to do with that, if it's the case that we actually did change it. But I don't remember that happening. I do remember that when I shot the film, I wasn't that interested in shooting a lot of gore. I didn't get into it, actually. I'm not a big gore fan. I'm not really a horror fan, in fact. I'm more interested in suspense and Hitchcock and John Frankenheimer movies, and I fashioned this script to be kind of a Hitchcockian movie, but obviously in the horror genre. So I had all these girls getting killed, but when I shot it, I made a decision. I'm only going to really graphically shoot 2 of the girls killed, and that was Morgan, who's the pretty blonde who holds the music box, and she was going to get stabbed through the chest. And God, now I even forgot. There was one other. And the head in the toilet. When we find Jeannie's head in the toilet. Those were going to be the 2 things I was going to spend the time on and make them graphically gory. Everything else was going to be like in shadows. And that's actually how I shot it and cut it and screened it. to all these distributors. Actually, I should say we shot it and cut it, but when I did cut it, before I screened it, I should say, to the distributors looking for a distribution deal, I got a bunch of notes back from people who I brought in to look at the movie, some peers of mine and just some smart people. And they all said, the problem is you get up to these killings and you're not paying them off. So I actually shot at my parents' backyard house, in the backyard of their house, a bunch of little payoff, gory scenes to these, to the murders, including when Eileen Davidson, playing Vicky, gets the cane in her eye. Did that shot at my parents' house. There's a little shadow thing where the first girl, I think it's Stevie, in the basement with a light bulb. That scene just ended with a hand grabbing her mouth. That was like the last shot, but I shot an ending to it where you see the shadow of her being stabbed. The first guy that gets killed, some stupid frat guy who's wandering around, and he's like the first murder. So I wrote that little scene of him wandering around looking to take a pee, and he ends up getting killed. And that was put in, to kind of pump up the gore, but also to put a gory scene earlier in the movie because it took too long to get to the killings. So, so we ended up really shooting a bunch of things. I think the cane going through the hand, and I think that's how Harley gets it in the van. I believe that we also shot at my parents' house afterwards, and I can't remember what other things. So we definitely did do some changes after the shooting.
Wow, I mean, the film really does have taking the murders out of the equation. The film really does feel like a Hitchcock film. It's more suggestion than payoff. And speaking personally, I'm more about suggestion than payoff personally.
That's exactly what I was going for. And I also really wanted the girls. The other thing that really bugged me about this genre then was that they were all innocent, quote unquote, in that they were innocent of any kind of crime or anything, but generally they were guilty, quote unquote, of sex. They would have sex with their boyfriends, on Friday the 13th, and that's why they'd be getting killed. I wanted these girls to be have a sense of guilt. And my favorite scene in the movie, and they all get in the kitchen, and they're all as a group trying to figure this out, what to do, who's going to lead them, who are they going to listen to. And to me, that was what the movie was about for me. It was these girls under pressure. They've done something they regret, and what do you do now? And do you do the right thing? Do you not? Do you protect your future? What do you do? The moral predicament that these girls are thrust into, and that's what I was going for.
Do you recall any behind-the-scenes kind of amusing stories that happened when the cameras weren't rolling?
Well, one thing is we did run out of money during the shooting, and the crew was going to kind of mutiny on us, which meant they were just going to walk, and which I don't blame them because we ran out of money. So I did a quick flight out to New York. We were shooting in outside of Baltimore, in Maryland, in Pikesville, Maryland, and I flew out to L.A. and I met with a couple people, and lucky for me, I have a great cousin who stepped forward and gave us some more money, and we were able to pay the crew and kind of finally get to the finish line and get the film shot, which was the big goal. Just get it in the can. I can deal with the post-production on a slower basis, just me and an editor. So just had to get it in the can. Another thing, we were also bouncing checks to the lab. We were sending the negative that we shot to be processed in New York, at Technical in New York, and our checks started to bounce, and so they would refuse to send us the daily. So they were processing the negative, and they would tell us by phone, okay, we looked at the footage, there's no scratches, you're okay. But I wasn't seeing anything. And, it's a normal process that as you're shooting, you're seeing the dailies. And basically, I lived in that house. We took over this house, and I would sleep in a room, in one of those rooms upstairs was my room. And what was great about it is, you know, in the mornings I'd wake up. We shot all nights, by the way. I mean, I think there's like 2 daytime scenes in the movie, and then everything is night. So we were on a, you know, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. shooting call. And so I'd wake up, you know, go to bed at 6 a.m., wake up around 2 or something, and then just kind of walk through the house and kind of figure out shots, figure out what I was going to do, and just really just, you know, got a real sense of the house almost as a character, and was able to incorporate that in the movie. God, I don't know what else. No, that's about it. Yeah.
All right. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, so I just want to thank you for your participation today. Any final words you'd like to say to the fans out there?
Well, yeah, you know, it continually amazes me that this film has a loyal following. It's just been fantastic. You know, it was a labor of love in a certain respect, is that it was my first project. I have really fond memories of it.
What are you girls doing here?
Who, us?
The house is closed. What are you girls doing here?
Well, you tell her, Diane.
It's all very simple, Mrs. Slater. We had to move the graduation party from the Silver Bear.
Move it?
Insufficient funds. So
We're having the party here.
Really?
We're only staying a couple of extra days to set it up.
And whose idea was all this?
Well, Vicky thought the house would be the perfect place, and we all agreed.
Vicky.
Hi, this is Adrienne King, Alice from Friday the 13th, and the hysteria continues.
All right, that was the writer-director of The House on Sorority Row, Mark Rosman, and I should mention that was actually the second interview I'd done with him. The first one, miraculously, thanks to technology, did not record, but he was very kind enough to sort of redo the interview, so there you go.
Excellent.
Yes,
This
exactly.
time you needed to turn the computer on when you were going to be recording.
I was talking to myself the first time. I was pretending to be Mark.
It's awful when that happens. Obviously, I haven't mentioned that obviously this isn't recording at all, which, well, it obviously is, because if you hear it, then it is. So that joke fell a bit flat. But anyway, but no, thank you, Mark. That was fantastic. And you know, and I mean, I'm glad that obviously we're talking about a movie that we all love, because obviously if we were talking about a movie we didn't love, then it may be a bit unfortunate to get the director on. So, but we'll be talking to Robin a little bit later. Nathan's talking to Robin about her time in a toilet. And it's a fantastic interview. I mean, it's an amazing interview.
In a toilet.
A time in a toilet.
Poor Robin.
Poor Robin. But again, you've got to check out the excerpt on Hysteria Lives, and listen. I mean, you'll get a very good taste of it from the interview with her. But it's an incredible,
fantastic
interview, and it's very, very, very funny. She's a very talented woman. But actually, just talking. So we can talk about some of the factoids and the background behind sort of the film now. I just quickly. I'm just going to go just talking about bad reviews, and I've kind of subscribed to this website which looks at old. It basically does searches of old newspapers in the States, so you can look up reviews and movie times, and not movie times, but like old posters and stuff from the 80s, or any time. I'm going to go back to the 1880s, I suppose. And I posted some of those on Hysteria Lives Facebook group in the past. But I dug up a couple of film reviews for The House on Sorority Row, and they're both completely different. And it's talking about getting bad reviews, and I think Mark Rosman, I can't remember if he said in the interview, but he said maybe on the commentary, he sort of said the Baltimore papers gave it a really scathing review and said the problem wasn't the film was shown. Problem wasn't the film was made in Baltimore. The problem was that it's being shown in Baltimore, and it was. So he was laughing about that because essentially. Essentially he kind of, this came out at the tail end of the slasher movie boom, and a lot of critics were sick to the back teeth for slasher movies, and there was a violent reaction against them. And so I've got this kind of thing. It's from the Syracuse Herald, and it's surrounded by one story says star forbids opera jokes, which I'm not sure what that was about, and $2 blouse sale, but at the Fashion Factory. So if you were there in May the 3rd, which is actually my birthday, is May the 3rd in 1983, it's got...
You would have been 27.
I would have been 14 back then.
Oh, sorry.
You were born in 83.
No, that's not, my birthday. No, this is when this clipping's from the Syracuse Herald Journal is from May the 3rd, 1983, on my birthday, on my 14th birthday. Jane E. Vadabonkia. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but
Top socks.
Considering the title is Sorority Row, a real loser. And basically, she savages the film. And just one paragraph I'll read. It says, "The faces of the seven, as well as Mrs. Slater and a doctor who did the cesarean, are unknown. In later years, younger ones might prefer they remain that way. Exhibitors have a nasty habit of resurrecting this type of garbage when an actor becomes famous. It happened with Dustin Hoffman, John Voight, and most recently Robin Williams." Now, I don't remember Dustin Hoffman, John Voight, and Robin Williams being in slasher movies, but I kind of get the point she's making. She obviously didn't like this movie. But to counter that, I have another review here. This is from The Register, and it doesn't actually say whereabouts in the States it's from. But this is by Pat H. Broski, who I'm not sure if Pat was a man or a woman, but the title shows the flip side of the coin is House on Sorority Row reveals real talent in twists on worn tale. And if you're listening and you want any copy of these, I mean, obviously I send PDF through, but it says, one quick parrot says, "Still, if the premise has been done to death, no pun intended, there is no denying that Rosman shows that just as much polish and promise as John Carpenter did with his feature film entry 1978's famed Halloween." So it goes to show how differently it was reviewed. On one hand, it's got people loving it and saying it's as good as Halloween, and who knows? I mean, that's a fair approximation of the film. And on the other hand, you've got someone saying it's awful. But I think, as Mark laughed about it on the DVD commentary, he knows full well. And just a couple of other quick reviews, and this is actually from the back of the House of Evil VHS that I've got. It says, "A skillfully made horror picture that marks a promising debut for writer-director Mark Rosman, one-time assistant to Brian De Palma from Scarface." And that's Los Angeles Times, which I think he talks about saying getting a good review. What's on and Time to Go say plenty of genuine chills and thrills, all in the deadliest taste. City Limits say nasty surprises and bizarre bits of business, a neatly offbeat finale. And Time Out said, and this is, you may recognise this, is screen smart slash with panache. Now, that, I'm fair to say, that is where I got the slash panache, which I have on every review on Hysteria Lives, which goes to show, how much an influence House of Evil, aka House on Sorority Row, has been. It's been part of my life for the last 25 years. So, kudos to Mark and all the girls of the House of Sorority Row. If I'm not going on too much and love the sound of my own voice, a couple of their factoids before. I don't want to use them all up, Erik, because hopefully you've got some that I haven't used as well. But just to say that the film was released in the States on 21st of January 1983. It was originally called, the script was called Screamer, and then it was changed to Seven Sisters. But I think maybe the producers thought it sounded like it was a film about nuns. Now, I kind of wrote my own treatment for a nun slash movie called Bad Habit, which I thought would be a really good... Yes, which could be set in a Catholic girls' school in the early 80s in Surrey, and it would have a psycho nun stalking the girls. And actually, I'm sorry, going completely off topic here, but it's because the school I went to, because I was brought up Catholic, although obviously I'm very, very lapsed now. But the school I went to was called, I don't know if I've talked about this before, but Merrow Grange is where Baron Gould, who wrote On Christian Soldiers, lived, and built this Gothic pile. And it was a comprehensive school, and the boys' school down the road was 60s carbuncle. And the girls' school was this Gothic monstrosity with turrets and bookcases that moved and stuff like this. I'm sure I've probably spoken about this before. But it kind of inspired me because we were taught by nuns some of the time. And have I talked about this before on the podcast?
I don't recall, no.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I don't want to bore you if I have, but basically this had a very interesting history, the school. It was built by Baron Gould, and he built an underground maze for his children in the gardens, and he had turrets built upstairs. And my mum went there, she was going to go to boarding school there, and in the 40s or 50s. And when we went there, the whole top floor was closed off, but it was closed off because it was a fire hazard. But it used to be the dormitories were upstairs, and people used to creep upstairs and have a look around, and there were all sorts of weird noises, and people would hear children laughing and all these kind of things. But the legend was that there was a nun without a face who would haunt the place, and had been pushed from the balcony in the ballroom. We had this ballroom there, and had died. And there was a lift there because it got converted to a hotel before the First World War. And the Molotov cocktail, who gave his name to it, stayed there. And there was a lift that didn't work anymore, but apparently the legend went that this nun would go up and down in the lift, and she would stop, and you would see her kind of whatever it was, the habit, but what they call the headpiece, and it'd be the black face behind it staring out of you, but from behind this lift glass. So as you can imagine, that kind of kind of set my mind racing when I was 12 or 13. And there was loads of stories. There was some guy called Nigel, I think it was, or maybe it was Kevin, who said he was possessed, and everyone thought he was possessed because he went a bit boss-eyed and stabbed himself with a compass. And he was supposedly but possessed by this nun. And so this is what kind of inspired me to write Bad Habit, and it never got produced because it never really got very far. But that was my idea for that. So anyway, sorry, that's completely off subject. But back to House on Sorority Row. I think, as has been said before, it's made in Baltimore, in Pikesville, Maryland. The opening shots were actually in Maryland University, and the later shots were in Pikesville. The great John Waters visited the set one day because obviously he's a Baltimore icon. I think, as Mark says, or has said, is they added lots of blood in post-production because they're obviously told to by the producers. And when the film came out, it did pretty well at the box office in the States. It wasn't released, my understanding is it wasn't released wide like, say, a Friday the 13th film was. It was back in the days where you would still release films regionally in the States. And it worked really well, and it was paired with Funeral Home, Leslie Donaldson film, on double bills around the States, and it was released by Film Ventures International. Apparently MGM was interested for a while, but as I said before, there was a kind of a logjam with slash movies from this time, which means lots of movies, as we said before, the film was filmed in summer of 81, but didn't get released until early 83. But it was released about the same time as other films that got delayed, such as The Evil Dead. And people forget with The Evil Dead that it was pretty much forgotten in the States, but because it became hugely successful in the UK, and I think in Scotland it made more money on video than E.T. in 1982, so massively successful. And also films like Entity, Mortuary and Funeral Home all around about the same time as House on Sorority Row. Just trying to see what else. Mark was 25 when he made this. He was pretty young, and he said, I think people were spoke to him about making a sequel for a number of years, and I think we're going to talk about the remake a little bit in a little while. And also, I can't remember. Sorry, I mean, what we're doing is we're cutting the interview back in, but I can't remember. Joseph, did Mark talk about the original ending in your interview? Can you remember?
He did. He said
did, yeah.
that the original was scripted where the final girl was in a hospital and she's being wheeled out by an orderly, and the orderly turns out to be Erik, and that was scripted. And
Not
they
our
actually
Erik.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, you.
I have no recollection.
With rum and coke in his hand, pushing her down the aisle. So the last thing I was going to say before hand over to Erik was, or to any of the other guys, was that the score, which I know Meep, who is a great guy and is listens to the show and also posts very regularly. And
Michael Jonathan Ferrari.
Yes, absolutely, and he loves. I think it's his favourite score is House on Sorority Row. So I've got Gilbot on my lap.
It's really good. Yeah,
it's really good by
It's quite
Richard
good.
Band, and it was London Philharmonic Orchestra, which is not unheard of, because there's been a few films that have got like big band, not big band scores, but scores by London Philharmonic. But it's quite unusual for slash movies, which certainly around about this time, or maybe a couple of years earlier, were very much like John Carpenter influence. So it'd be very tinkly, as it were, sort of. I'm someone, as the case of Don't Go Into the Woods, someone's headbutting an organ. As it were, so that could be read wrong.
A keyboard, you should say.
I should say, yes. Okay, on that bombshell.
Before Erik goes into his tidbits, I just wanted to go back to the original ending, where they actually scripted it with the orderly wheeling her out, and the orderly's Erik, but they actually shot the part with her laying face down in the pool wearing the costume, but they were told that, no, you can't end it too downbeat, so they just, they cut it with him opening his eyes. But Mark said that he preferred the ending they shot, and unfortunately no one has found the actual footage of it yet. So
it's such a shame, isn't it?
Let's keep our fingers crossed, because that would be a really good extra bonus to see on maybe a future DVD or Blu-ray release or something.
Absolutely. No, it's a real shame that hasn't never been found, because obviously on the DVD that's now out of print, I've actually got two. I've got the first DVD and I've got the second one, and it's got it's basically Mark talking about the ending and talking about how it's done with some stills from the production. But there is a new DVD coming out, I think, with new extras, isn't there? You heard about that?
I've heard rumours, yeah.
So okay. Well, Erik, just on
the DVD subject, I've got the really, really horrible Hollywood DVD Region 2 release, which is this ultra cheapo label. And I think I picked it up for about £2, about 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But it looks like a VHS transfer, and it's really awful. And I really should get around to getting a proper release of it, because it's a film that justifies splashing out and getting a proper special release. But I've got some back behind the scenes tidbits, and I've got one that's of special interest to you, Justin, because Michael Kunn, I think is how you pronounce his surname. He plays Peter, who is Catherine's potential love interest in Sorority. Or what am I talking about? In House on Sorority Row.
Yeah.
That was his only real acting role. He went on to be a producer, and do you know what one of the things he produced was?
Nocturne by Susie and the Banshees.
Exactly. He produced Nocturne by Susie and the Banshees, a live concert film.
No, what was it? What did he produce?
No, that's what I'm saying. He produced Nocturne by Susie and the Banshees.
No.
He did.
By the way,
you're joking. I didn't know that.
No, I'm serious. He did. In 1983, he was one of the producers of Nocturne by Susie and the Banshees.
That's really bizarre, because I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I must be psychic.
Everyone listening, there will be a Susie and Toya reference in every episode from now on.
You see, I would be one of those. I'd be one of those better psychics than the one that psychic that's in the news this week. The one who said, "Go and dig up that man's backyard because you'll find 30 dead children." And you can imagine someone knocking at the door and saying, "We believe there's 30 dead children in your backyard," and there isn't any. Did you hear about that?
No,
it was in the news in the States. I don't know. It was so this psychic said that they'd had a vision. There was 30 dead children in a backyard of somebody's house in the States. So they turned up and they dug.
Oh,
and
yeah,
dug.
I read that the other day.
And was there 30 dead children?
No, there wasn't anyone.
Oh,
So I was saying I would be a better psychic. I'm like Dorothy Stokes.
This person's being investigated for fraud now because of it.
I know. Well, they should come to me, because honestly, I didn't know. That is a little bit spooky. Anyway, no, thank you.
Well, he did produce Nocturne by Susie and the Banshees.
Wow, that's amazing.
Another tidbit of information is Eileen Davidson, who plays Vicky, who's the bitchy character in it. Yeah. She is currently on husband number 3, who happens to be Vincent Van Patten, who is the mop-topped
Hell Knight.
Seth from Hell Knight. Exactly.
Yeah.
I prefer to know him as Johnny from the classic Wonder Woman episode, Mind Stealers from Outer Space, where he battles the evil Skrill.
Let's move on.
Isn't he also in what other films? Is it kind of there's another? Is it not? What's the sequel to Cheerleader Camp? That wasn't. It was Millennium Nightmare or whatever it was. Wasn't he in that? It was the one where it's got. Who's the woman who was the
Betsy
the lead?
Russell?
Betsy Russell. It was called. It was kind of the lost sequel to Cheerleader Camp.
Oh,
apparently he's in that. It's not Millennium Nightmare. It's something like that.
Camp Fear?
Camp Fear. That's the one. I think.
Sorry,
he's in
I
that.
can't think of him beyond Wonder Woman, who is one. It's one of my ultimate pleasures. Is Wonder Woman.
Well, he was in Hell Knight. He was because he's from a famous family, isn't he? In the
Yes,
States?
is it Dick Van Patten? Is his father?
Yeah,
is it?
And he wasn't. So they basically wouldn't allow the woman who I can't remember her name again. So, but you know who the woman who ends up severed head. There's a theme running through this in the bed next to him. They wouldn't let her have any nudity, would they? Because he said his family wouldn't allow it. So yeah, excellent. Any other tidbits?
I think
do.
I think Eric just wants Vincent Van Patten to tie him up with a golden lariat and force him to tell the truth.
Yes.
Well, Erik, I think you should definitely get. I think you should definitely get a decent version of House and Sorority Row, and you know, you maybe just have to stop splashing out on those Bob Hoskin DVDs.
It's difficult not to. It's really difficult not to. Okay, another tidbit of information from House and Sorority Row is that one of the script supervisor on the film is Rachel Talalay, who went on to have an important role in the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and she in fact directed Freddy's Dead, and she went on to Ghost in the Machine and Tank Girl, and then I think she's disappeared into direct-to-DVD oblivion since then. The other thing is, you know the guy who's wandering around the woods and he gets stabbed in the neck with the cane? That is Kenny Myers, who is a famous effects artist, and he actually worked on Deadly Eyes, which stars the lovely Leslie Donaldson. He worked on Friday the 13th Part 3, Silent Witness, and on the remake of The Crazies, and he just finished work on the latest Pirates of the Caribbean or whatever it's called. So that I think that was one of the gore inserts that was insisted by the producers. Do I have any other information? Yes, Mark Rosman's subsequent film after this was to be Night Warning, which I think we got as Mutant. Was it called Mutant in the US as well?
Well, Night Warning was Butcher Baker, Nightmare Maker, wasn't it, in this country?
It was a film called Mutant anyway. By John Bud Carlos, who directed Kingdom of the Spiders, ended up finishing the film, but Mark Rosman started it. I don't know why he left the film. I didn't get a chance to sort of delve into that area, but he started it, but was, relieved of his duties at some stage. His most recent credit, by the way, and this will interest you most of all, Justin, is a TV movie called William and Kate.
I am aware of that. Yes, I'm not a royalist.
Did you sit in that Bank Holiday Friday and watch the royal wedding?
Well, actually, we did. We got because I'm not a royalist, but we had some friends. One of them's Scottish and one of them's Welsh, and so we were the only English people there, and they loved it. And we were watching it, and then we got very, very drunk because what else could you do apart from watching a very, very, very boring ceremony? And I just kept on hoping, someone would blow something up or something to make it a bit more exciting. And they brought loads of Union Jack. They got given them free at Tesco's from the Sun newspaper. And so we did a fashion parade up and down the garden path, dressed in Union Jacks. And I made a burqa out of Union Jacks and paraded that while the riot helicopter was hovering overhead after there were riots down the road at the local Tesco's. So, yes, it's very eventful. Thank you very much.
And one other thing is the effects were done by Rob E. Holland, and this becomes clear because he's from Baltimore, but he also did the special effects for Polyester, I think 1981 John Waters movie.
Yeah,
and he also did the effects on Madman as well.
Yeah.
And just talking about the UK release, I'm looking here at another issue of Starburst I have, because I bought a huge amount of Starburst magazines on eBay a few years ago, and it's a UK magazine that kind of melds Starlog and Fangoria. It's kind of a sci-fi and horror magazine, and it reviews House on Sorority Row in its number 59 issue, but it reviews it under the title House on Sorority Row.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if it was released theatrically as House on Sorority Row and then released to VHS as House of Evil. I don't know if you have any information on that.
It wasn't. No. Well, films sometimes got released in multiple versions, but actually, again, funny enough, on the Robin book excerpt, there's a photo of the UK quad, which is House of Evil. It unfortunately doesn't use the artwork, which of the House of Evil artwork, which is very much a mid 80s or coming up to mid 80s airbrushed type affair. What it's got is it's got a picture of the woman from the American poster, and it's basically cut into shards, almost like shards of glass, and it's got a knife stabbed into it with House of Evil across it. But who knows? It may well have been released as House on Sorority Row, because I looked at the BBFC, which obviously are the British censors, and it didn't have any record of giving an X certificate at the cinema, which is odd, because obviously it did play at the cinema, or was at least meant to play at the cinema, because certainly quad posters were produced. That's as far as I know. But was it by Alan Jones?
Yes, it's by Alan Jones, and he gives it a very positive review. I'll just read the last paragraph to you. He says, Mark Rosman's debut is one that should make the major studios sit up and take note. His confident handling of actors and direction of camera should get another outlet soon, because on the strength of the House on Sorority Row, he deserves it. So it's obviously a very, a glowing review. I mean, Alan Jones was very sympathetic, I suppose, is the word, towards the slasher genre back in the day.
Well, Alan Jones is great. I spoke to Alan Jones once, and he's a lovely guy. And I remember this is years and years and years ago. And all he would talk about was how dreamy Ryan Philippe was in we did last summer.
I have a friend who does the same.
Okay, well, fair enough. But interestingly, he did a really good book, if you can ever find it, called Necrophile, and he basically dissects about
the Necrophiles,
not the Necrophiles, but it's just called Necrophile. It was published probably 15 years ago.
That was an alt horror joke.
It was. I remember the Necrophile, but he actually says that he adores the Friday the 13th movies. The only one he doesn't like is Friday the 13th Part 2, which he says, in his own words, is a slavish imitation of the first film, which I don't really understand, because they're all a slavish imitation, and that's the beauty of them. But anyway, that's just an aside. So is anything else, Erik, you've got on?
Let me just check. I think you've covered everything. No, that's everything I have on House and Sorority Row. Yes.
How about you guys, Nathan and Joseph, before we go to Robin's interviews, anything you wanted to say?
I wanted to talk a little bit about the house mother and her hideous dubbing that they used on the voice, because from what I understand is that when they recorded it, someone, I believe, said that, her voice isn't menacing enough. She sounds too sweet. So they went back and they dubbed her with this kind of housefrau, grumpy old lady, and the ADR on it is really terrible. And I've always picked up on that. But the rest of the movies is so well put together. I always wondered why the actual ADR for her voice was just kind of off. I mean, you could tell that it was a dub job.
Well, I think Mark says on the commentary that he probably wishes they hadn't done that, because it doesn't really work. I mean, if she sounded like, I don't know, Minnie Mouse or something, then you can understand it might be, it probably wouldn't have worked either. So I suppose they're between a rock and a hard place. But yeah, I mean, it kind of.
I mean, I know. I also want to say, I know that after the Robin Malloy interview, we're going to come back and talk about the remake a little bit, but I don't think either of us have mentioned the actual killer in the film. I mean, no one's talked about him. I mean, do you guys have anything to say about him? Or?
Well, all I would say is, I mean, it's, because I think Mark says that he kept him off camera for as much as possible because he wasn't very happy with the makeup effects. Because you don't really see a look at him at all. He kind of looks almost like a very skinny elephant man, I kind of guess from the little bits you see. But when you see the kind of backlit with the white hair, it kind of looks like maybe like, I don't know, like a psychotic Ivana Trump or something. Maybe, I don't know if that's what they were going for, but like they kind of the back look.
I just wanted to mention a little bit about I really like the killer's weapon, the cane with the sharp point, and the part where at the very end, obviously where he dons the jester's outfit. Is hideously very scary.
Yeah,
and
really good.
I can only imagine if the whole film had been, you know, our point of view on the killer wearing that throughout the whole film. I wonder if it would have been as scary, you know, seeing it too much, or if it was better just him doing it at the last minute. I'm going to say I think I'm glad they kept it at the very last minute as like a final shock, because I think seeing it throughout the whole film kind of would have taken its luster away a bit. What do you think?
I think it would have taken away from the movie if he would have worn that the entire film.
Yeah, I do too. I
agree. Yeah, I agree, because the classic shot of the you know, the room with all the toys and, you know, kept in the childhood, and having that life-size jester's outfit on the wall, and then the head lifts up when Catherine McNeil's like backing towards it, or backing, you know, into the corner. It's, you know, it's a classic scare, and I imagine that would have been fantastic in the cinema to see. Also, I kind of guess he might have got a few looks if he was running around the with 4 out of 5 doctors dressed in a jester's outfit. I don't know. You know, maybe he might have got. And I do wonder.
Can I just say that I downloaded the debut album by?
Hey, you downloaded? Did you pay for it?
Off iTunes. I paid $9.99 for it.
Yeah. You're lying.
I'm not, but I mean, it was for work, in inverted commas.
Yeah. Back off.
And it's actually really quite good. Justin wouldn't like it, but I mean, I thought it was quite good.
Is there any
they don't wear enough eyeliner.
Any songs about graves?
Sorry?
Any songs about graves or tombstones?
No, there's no songs about graves or tombstones.
Not 4 out of 5 Susies or anything.
No.
Toya at 10 Killer, as we mentioned on the thing.
That was very good. Yeah.
Yeah. Have we got? Okay, guys. Have we got?
Sorority Row.
Have we got any other? Because we can come back and talk a little bit more about this in a little while, because obviously we are now up to, well, I think we're over the 2-hour mark already. So this is Bollywood and then some. Yeah. And who thought we could do this much? Go on then. Go on.
La 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 la. That's the end. Sorry.
That's very disappointing.
Thank you.
Okay.
As good as Toya.
That's
Toya. Yeah, it wasn't as disappointing as Toya's back catalogue. But what we're going to do now is move swiftly on to Robin Malloy and her very, very. I mean, this is a fantastic interview with Nathan, and I think, you know, you've been waiting long enough now for it. And here's Nathan with the fantastic, humorous, and amazingly entertaining Robin Malloy.
Jeannie, what happened? Did somebody do this to you? Who? Jeannie, where did it happen? Kate? Jeannie, I'm gonna have to get help. I'm gonna get somebody who'll take you to the hospital. Kate? Okay, Jeannie. It's gonna be all right, okay? Promise. I'll be right back. Okay? Come on.
How did you get involved with House on Sorority Row? Like, how did you first hear about it?
Yeah, I was playing the piano at a Holiday Inn in Waterbury, Connecticut, living in New York City, but working in Connecticut. And as usual, on every Thursday, I picked up a copy of Backstage, the actors' newspaper, and there was a listing there. It was an open call for this film, and I knew it would be just swamped. You know, open calls in New York City are. I think they auditioned 700 people that day, 700 girls.
Wow.
So I decided to show up because at that point in my life, I was desperate to get out of the Waterbury Holiday Inn. And this looked like, it might be an opportunity. But I was, when I showed up at the audition, I was really shocked at how many people were there. And, you know, I got in line. I didn't have anything else to do that day. It was a rainy day. So I sat there and waited with everyone else. I was number 430 or something like that. So, yeah, they took me in. And I decided there was no sense trying to look good because everyone there looked a lot better than I did. There were a lot of really beautiful girls there that day. And I don't know, something just clicked in my head. I thought, well, these are formula films usually, and there's always one dweeb in the cast. You know, there's always one, like, kind of nerdy girl. I'm not fall down gorgeous by any stretch, but I'm also not a bad-looking woman, but I decided to really make myself look as bad as I possibly could. I'm hoping that there might be a part there for a dweeb. And there was. And I walked in the room, and they were just at that point just looking at everybody physically and typing us to see, you know, who might be good physically for which role. And Mark Rossman looked at me, and he said, "You're my genie." And I went through several auditions after that where I had to actually read. I had to scream more than I had to read. That was my audition process, scream, scream, scream. And I got the part. So that's how I got involved.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So you actually, not being a fan of those kinds of films, haven't really seen any before that, right?
Not really. Although now that I think back on it, how did I know that they were formula films? How did I know that there was always one kind of stupid-looking girl in the cast? I don't know. I figured that out somehow. I don't think... Had Halloween been released at that point?
Yes.
It had. Yeah. So maybe I had seen that one, but I'm not really sure. Yeah.
Okay. And the cast of the movie, what was it like working with your other sorority sisters?
Oh, they were great. You know, I think back, I'm 53 years old now, and I think back on that time, we were all most of us were in our early 20s, and we were all so excited to be working on a movie, and we just thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And we knew, we were all pretty smart, too, so we knew it was kind of a goofy thing, you know, the plot and everything. We knew it was goofy, but we just decided to make the best of it, and we had a really good time, and we bonded in a major way because we were all living together in this awful kind of youth hostel place. So it was a weird scene where we were living. There were these huge bats in the bathroom, and we spent a lot of time together, which I don't think happens on a lot of film sets. Maybe it does, I don't know. But we spent a lot of quality time together and really got to know each other pretty well. Had a lot of fun.
Well, bats in the bathroom.
Bats in the bathroom. As I've mentioned to you before, I've written a story about this in a new book that's just been published of mine. And that was one of the things when I started writing about that experience. I realized that where we were living was actually far more frightening than the actual film set. They could have actually done a movie about the place where we were living. It was very scary. Between the whirling Sufi dancers with the white beards and the white dresses and then the giant bats, it was a little frightening.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, we had a good time.
And the woman that played the house mother, I believe her name was Lois Kelso Hunt.
Lois. She was pretty scary, huh?
Yeah, she was in the movie. She was very intimidating.
Yeah, she was. We were all a little freaked out by her in real life, too. I think the movie is a little spookier than I expected it to be because I believe they dubbed her voice later. They used another actress's voice. I think. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that they changed Lois's voice between when we were shooting it and the actual film. They did some post-production work in California, and I think the voice was changed at that point.
It does seem like it was dubbed when you rewatch the movie. Okay. Yeah, it does have a different feel to it than, say, the rest of the dialogue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And one thing I wanted to mention, and I mean no offense, I think she's great in the movie, but Jodie Draghi, who played Morgan, the blonde, she has this classic line in the movie, and we always get a laugh out of it every time she says it because the way she says it, it just comes out really
What is
humorous.
It?
And I'm going to try to do my best impersonation here.
Okay.
How do we know she is alive? It's just the way it comes out just sounds funny to me. And like I said, I mean no offense. It's just it was a really funny line.
It is. Yeah, that was really funny. I remember laughing at that myself. We laughed along with Jodie the whole time we were shooting the film. She was, boy, what a classic dumb blonde look she had in that part. I mean, it was just, she was funny. Jodie was a trip. Do you have any idea what she's doing now?
I tried to find her because I wanted to interview her as well, but I couldn't locate her.
Yeah, just so you could hear her say that one more time.
I wanted to interview her so I could have her say that line.
Yeah, I Googled her, I don't know, several years ago when I was working on the story for my book, and I couldn't find her either. Yeah, so who knows what she's doing. One can only hope she's still acting somewhere.
I hope so.
I hope so, yeah.
And rewatching the movie recently with some friends of mine, I think that your character, Jeannie, was probably the one that we kind of yelled at the most, especially when she runs upstairs instead of into the party where everybody is.
I know, she's so stupid. All she had to do was run. Really, all she really needed to do was run next door, get them to stop playing that stupid music and have somebody help her, but no. It was kind of a problem for me as an actor to figure out how to be stupid enough to do that, you know? What's that line? What's my motivation? I just couldn't figure out why in the world anybody would run upstairs and, worse yet, hide in the bathroom. You know, this is like one of the first rules of scary situations: don't hide in the bathroom. So, but I finally just figured that she was not Jeannie. My character was not very bright, and that she was so upset she wasn't thinking straight, and that's what I used to get me up those steps and into the bathroom. That and the fact that the director told me that that's what I had to do. No,
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, getting into that, of course, that brings us to the classic, head in the toilet bowl scene. What were your thoughts when you found out you had to do that?
Well, I knew about it fairly early on in the process, at the special effects guy's house, what was his name, Rob something or other, in Brooklyn, to have my neck fitted for a prosthesis because my head would appear in a toilet later on in the film. So I was a little taken aback by that, and I duly went to the special effects man in Brooklyn, and he put my head in this bucket of gunk so that he could do the mold for the thing, and God bless him, he was really into what he was doing. He was very passionate about his job and was all excited, telling me about the guts and the goo and the gore and the tendons that were going to be exposed, and wouldn't it be great? And at that point, I still hadn't seen a script, so I didn't really know how exactly they were going to work this out, but with a 22-year-old's blind trust, I decided that it would all be okay somehow. The night of the shoot, we actually, it's an interior scene, but we had to do this particular shoot outside because they had built this huge platform. Okay, how do I describe this? The platform was about 5 feet off the ground, and the toilet bowl, it was an actual toilet bowl with the bottom part of it drilled out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they attached that to the floor of this platform that was up in the air 5 feet off the ground, and they had me sit underneath this platform and stick my head up into the toilet bowl. I said, is that a real toilet? And the director said, yes, but we cleaned it thoroughly. And somehow, once again, I thought, okay, I got to go through with this. And they put a little chair underneath this platform for me, and I have kind of a big head, and they had to sort of shove it through this hole in the bottom of the toilet, and it was really uncomfortable. And not to mention just the fact that the knowledge that I had my head inside a toilet was very weird. But they shoved a stool underneath me, and I sat there, and Mark, the director, and the crew, they all stood on the platform above me looking down and, making adjustments. Something doesn't look right. We need more blood in there. We need more water. And I was close to hysterical at one point. I really just lost it. But I did it, and, with Mark giving me directions. I remember him at one point telling me not to cry because dead people don't cry. And, you know, eyes open, eyes closed. They were dumping buckets of water on me. The steak blood. It was really awful. It took several hours to get that one little shot that you see in the movie. But, well, worth it, wouldn't you say? I remember seeing that in a theater with a bunch of teenage kids in New York City. And when that shot, I mean, now I guess it wouldn't be so shocking, but this was in the early 80s. And when that shot of my head in the toilet came on the screen, people screamed and hit the floor. It was really funny.
Oh, yes. I mean, you were a real trooper to be willing to do that. So
well, thank you.
That is awesome of you. And, you know, you're right. It is a memorable scene because I was talking to a friend of mine, and he goes, you know, there's a few scenes that scarred me when I was a little kid that I happened to see, and one of them is that head in the toilet bowl in House on Sorority Row.
Yeah, see? Yeah, well, what can I say?
It is one. It's for me, it's the most memorable scene in the movie.
Well, thank you very much. As I was shooting, you know, as we were in the middle of the shoot, I just kept, Meryl Streep at that point was my hero. It still is, actually. And I just kept thinking to myself, okay, what would Meryl do? What would Meryl do? She probably wouldn't have put her head in the toilet bowl in the first place, is what she would have done. But at that point, I was already in. So, yeah.
Did you knew that they remade it, right?
I do know that, which is what prompted me to write this story about it, because it got me thinking about the whole thing again. And at that point, I had some contact with Harley, and we were both sort of bitching and moaning that nobody had even called us to play the house mother.
I know.
We were like the perfect age. We could have done that, but I guess nobody thought about that.
It would have been a great throwback.
Yeah, really. Did you see the remake?
Yes, I did see that.
And how is it?
I mean, it's okay. It's nowhere near as good as the original, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's very. No. I mean, the original, the remake is so cheesy, it's ridiculous.
Really, it's even cheesier than our cheesy version. Huh?
Very much so.
Okay. Yeah. Well, retro cheese is always better than current cheese. Huh?
And there's no head in the toilet in the remake.
How could they leave that out?
I know. I mean, that's important. That's an important part.
I know why they left it out, because they couldn't find another actress crazy enough to do it. That's probably why. Oh, my.
When's the last time you saw House on Sorority Row?
You know, I've seen clips from it on YouTube. Friends of mine who didn't know about this former life of mine started finding it. And I think that as far as seeing the whole thing, I have a DVD of it here, but I don't know where it is because my I hid it from my children for so many years. I didn't want them to see their mother getting murdered and having her head in a toilet. But now my kids are old enough, they would probably find it very amusing, actually. So I haven't seen the whole film start to finish in quite a long time. It's about time to look at it again, I think.
And how do you feel about the film now? Are you proud of being a part of it?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think proud is the right word. I consider it an important part of my development in terms of not just acting, but growing up and figuring out how far you're willing to go to make art or what you think might be art. And I'm happy that I did it. I think it was an important step for me. Proud of it? Not really, but I think if people still continue to see it and get some pleasure from it, then why not?
Oh, that's true. It does have a lot of fans.
I know.
Have you had any other fans contact you about it or recognize you from it?
Yeah. An interesting thing happened when my first book was published. There was a little bit of hoopla about that. It's a book called Piano Girl, and I was on All Things Considered and a couple of other NPR shows. And one of the guys from the publishing house who, I was just another author in his mind. He didn't really care one thing about me or my book. But somehow, that's what it was. He was watching. He's one of the horror film fans. Very intellectual guy, it's not, but he loves horror films. And he was watching the movie, realized it's me. and all of a sudden he became like my biggest fan. It had nothing to do with my writing. It was just because I had been in that movie that he was excited about that. So that was funny to me. I'm trying to think. My name's different now. So, back then I was Robin Malloy. Now I'm Robin Malloy Goldsby. But yeah, every so often I'll just get some rogue email. I mean, I got your email saying, "Hey, are you the same girl who was in the movie?" So, yeah.
And your book it's available on Amazon, is it?
Yeah. It's called the book that the Sorority Row story is in is the name of the book is Waltz of the Asparagus People, which sounds a bit like a horror film itself, but it's not. And that story, which is quite lengthy, is in the second part of the book. It's a collection of short stories actually about playing the piano. Although I wasn't playing the piano on that film, I was going back and forth to my piano job in Waterbury, so that's how I fitted into the whole concept of the book.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun writing it. And it's, like most creative nonfiction, it's my memories of what happened, and it's my memories of the dialogue that occurred, and so there's a lot of there are a lot of fictional moments in the piece, but the basic facts are all facts. So if any of your listeners are fans of the movie, they might get a kick out of reading that story.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I'm sure they would.
Yeah, good.
And another thing I was curious about is if they were to make a sequel to the 1980s version, would you come back and say Jeannie's twin sister?
Oh, that's great. Well, of course, I would have to.
And maybe this time you wouldn't have to do the head in the toilet scene.
Maybe this time I could flush the toilet.
There you go.
Because I never liked that evil genie anyway. The twin. That would be good.
You could be the smarter twin.
The smarter twin. And maybe the more attractive twin, too, this time, so I don't have to wear those Garanimals outfits. And yeah.
Oh, yeah, Jeannie's fashion sense.
Oh, fashion sense. I was so disheartened, Nathan. The first day we arrived in Pikesville, Maryland, and they took us, the costumer took us to one of the big department stores in Washington, D.C., or maybe it was Baltimore, to do the costuming, and all the other girls got, bikinis and evening gowns and the slinky, sexy, fun kind of stuff, and they just put me in the worst stuff. And the director kept, frequently on the set, the director would say, she looks too good, you got to make her look worse. But I got into it after a while. It was okay.
Yeah, I can imagine, everybody else is, wearing, better outfits, and you're thinking, they just picked the worst stuff for me.
Yeah, I know. But what can you do?
Yeah, that's movie business, right?
That's the movie business. Here, wear these overalls that make you look pregnant and then stick your head in the toilet. Thank you.
It wasn't very glamorous at the time.
No, it wasn't very glamorous. Yeah. Do you have any of the other girls?
I've written to Catherine McNeil, and I wrote to somebody who might have played Stevie, Ellen Dorsher, but I'm not sure if it's her. And I also wrote to Harley, but I haven't heard anything back from her. Okay.
Yeah, good luck. Well, I mean, especially with Harley, you can tell her that you talked to me, and maybe that'll help if she knows that other people are talking about it. She wrote a really good blog piece about the movie too.
Oh, did she?
I can't remember where it is. I'll see if I can track it down for you. I don't know if it's her personal blog or she's got a blog called the Lipstick Chronicles or something like that. It might be on there. But,
okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. I would love to read that as well.
Yeah. She's a good writer. She does mysteries, detective novels. When did you start writing people? Just last week or so, yeah?
It was the same time I'd sent you the email. I actually sent one to Harley just right before I had sent one to you.
Okay. Well, maybe you'll get some response. And when are you planning to put this together?
I think it's going to be, it may be about a month from now, but it could be a month to a month and a half. We're going to try to hold out and see if we can get as many people as possible.
Cool. So it's a podcast, right? So
and I can send you the link when we do the episode.
yeah. Okay. Cool. That's going to be great. Very exciting. Well, good luck to you.
All right, and I thank you, and I know I speak for my fellow co-hosts as well, that we're really appreciative that you were willing to do this interview, Robin.
Oh, no problem. I'm happy to. I'm like I said, it's really good timing for me in terms of promoting the book, and because it's also fresh in my head, having just written that thing. It's fun stuff, and I think you'll have fun putting this all together too. And let me know if I can help you in any other way. Okay?
Oh, I definitely will. Thank you very much.
Okay, you take care, Nathan.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Eric spent every summer away from the clinic in the attic. I told Mrs. Slater that his condition was worsening. She wouldn't listen. You must have seen everything from the attic window. You understand? I must find him. You're the last one of your friends alive. You're the bait.
No.
And that was the lovely Robin Malloy Goldsby now, actually. I had a lot of fun interviewing her. She's very well-spoken, as you could tell. Very nice woman. It was awesome that she let us use a whole chapter of her book on the Hysteria Lives website. So thank you very much, Robin. And I wanted to go back, talking about the alternate endings and everything. I'm really curious as to what ending you would have preferred for this movie.
Yeah, okay. What do you think,
speaking
guys?
for myself, I would have went with her floating in the pool. I like that.
I would have gone for that one as well, Joseph, yeah.
I would have probably done. I mean, it works pretty well, but I think, as Mark Rosmond himself said in the commentary, it was a little bit cheesy, the ending they went with, because it kind of signified sequel time. But then I kind of guess the other ending would have signified that as well. But I think he liked the idea of turning convention on its head and killing off the final girl, which would have been great. And, not many movies have the balls to do that. I mean, it's too late to talk about spoilers now, but there are films that do kill off the final girl. Not many of them. And obviously, if you don't want to know, fast forward a minute, but The Dawn That Dripped Blood is a classic example.
Yeah.
Where the final girl gets killed. But
how about the wonderful Splatter University as well?
Yes. I don't want to talk about her dead because she didn't die, in my opinion.
Did you know that's coming out on DVD soon with a commentary by a certain Justin?
So who? By who?
A certain Justin.
Justin
Bieber?
Who? Bieber.
Yeah, Justin Bieber. He's done a commentary on it for Arrow DVD. It's coming out on July the 14th, is it?
What's that? Not Splatter University.
Slaughter High DVD.
Oh, Slaughter High. Yes, Slaughter High.
Does he just say baby, baby through the whole commentary?
I just go, No, well, I don't know. I haven't heard it. I haven't heard it for a little while. But but how did we get to Slaughter High? Because were we talking about Splatter University?
Oh, sorry. My mistake.
Sorry, I was getting confused because I thought they wouldn't hire me me. I'm not to get paid.
I got confused. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Splatter University is not coming out.
Not as far as I know. No. But Slaughter High is, and
they're
it's going to be.
Schools. That's
I was kind of excited for a second there.
Me too.
Wow.
But Slaughter High and Funhouse are going to be amazing releases, so you should check them out. And not because I'm on them, that's by the by, but Arrow have really, and High Rising Productions, Callum and Naomi, who I am working on I don't know if I blow my own trumpet, as you can't see, obviously, at the moment. I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but
like Mark Hammond can.
Like a Mark Hammond, I'll need to be hoovered out later. It's. I've got an associate producer credit on their new project, which is called Slice, and it's a slasher movie documentary, which they're interviewing loads of people like Felicia Rose and lots of slasher movie icons, and also some of the people you wouldn't expect to be interviewed for this kind of thing. And I've basically given them free run of my memorabilia collection, which is ridiculously large, and also I'm helping source trailers and stuff for it as well. So, but they did. High Rising Productions did all the extra work on Slaughter High and the Funhouse upcoming versions, and they're big slasher movie fans, and they do love them, and they do it for the love and do it for very little money. or like me do it for no money, but then I don't mind because I do love the genre. So, but anyway, enough of a plug about me. Are we going to talk a little bit about the remake now, aren't we? Should we do that now?
Yeah.
Was the swimming pool ending your favorite too, Justin?
I would say I would have liked to have seen that. Yeah, I mean, I think because I grew up with that ending of the eyes opening and stuff like that, it kind of reminded me of. It's ironic because it kind of reminded me of the ending of Black Christmas. With Olivia Hussey asleep, and then obviously the killer's potentially still alive, or someone's phoning, and it's very ambiguous. And with this, the killer wakes up, and anything could have happened, anything. But with I think I probably would have liked the final ending that he wanted to do, Mark Rosman wanted to do, because I certainly would have liked to have seen that. But I can understand why they didn't go with it, because they would have thought the people who who went to the movie would have come out and probably went, "Oh, it was a bit of a bummer. I didn't enjoy the ending." And of course, this is what people forget. I kind of guess sometimes is movies are made to make money. Nobody make movies for love. I mean, they pretend they do, and people make movies. They get hired because they're good at making certain movies. But ultimately, if a movie they don't think a movie's going to make money. They don't put millions of dollars into it. And I think that's why the producers mess with film. And certainly, Mark, as a first-time director, probably was kind of susceptible to that just purely because he was a first-time director.
I wager that Hairdresser Massacre was made for love, not money.
I would imagine too.
It has made no money, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Really?
Has it not yet?
No. I mean, how could it not?
Won't, because I put it on torrents. Now people can get it for free. Why would they want to pay for it now?
Then I'm going to sue you.
Hey.
Wow. Oh, this is all going horribly wrong.
You won't get anything out of me. You can have my car if you want it.
Yeah, I want that car, yeah.
We still need to see this Hairdresser Massacre.
I promise. I will get with Joseph and we will find a way to get it on YouTube or something.
Do people
I'll rip it from VHS and port it into the computer.
I will do that.
Because is it a kind of story of someone who kills somebody, then cuts their hair to give them a mullet or a beehive?
I wish it was that inventive, but really it's just about two elderly women who run a hair salon / steakhouse out of their kitchen.
Right.
And they go to customers and then search as the steak.
Get your hair cut while you're having a big T-bone.
Right. And at the opening scene, there's a sign outside, and I believe it says, "Welcome to Hazel and Jean's Hair Hut. Eat steak while you're here."
And who were Hazel and Jean? Who were they?
That's my grandma and my great aunt.
Oh, fantastic! Oh, that's great that your family got behind you with this, because that is I couldn't imagine my family doing that.
I'm sure they got coerced into it. They didn't get behind him.
I whined and begged and pleaded, and they couldn't stand my whiny voice. So.
Because it reminds me a little bit of, is it like the Gruesome Twosome, the Herschel Gordon Lewis, where they have old ladies, don't they, or an old lady at a store. So maybe you were channeling Herschel.
I think maybe, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Well, we are threatening now to go beyond. This is going to be the longest podcast we've ever done. So I think, without further ado, what we're going to do
They keep getting longer with each episode, I've noticed.
Who are misses?
By 5 minutes. By 5. Ooh.
So
saucy.
Okay. Well, let's carry on, and we shall go on to. We're going to talk a little bit about the remake, not too much, because what do you think, guys? Erik, what was your thoughts about the film?
Okay, I went to see this in the cinema when it came out, and I didn't care much for it at all. I watched it again last night because, believe it or not, it is available to watch in its entirety on YouTube, which I thought was a bit of a copyright violation, but there you go. What I do like about it. Sorry?
I'm sorry. YouTube is now trying to implement films in their full length. They're starting a subscription service. So
I don't have a subscription, so I was watching it illegally.
Well, the baby Jesus frowns on you then.
He does frown on me yet again. Yes, for many reasons. Anyway, I did watch it again, and I have to say I do like the first half of the film. I think that the prank gone wrong setup is really good. I don't like the second half of the film. I think the difference between it and the original House and Sorority Row is that the characters do not behave in the remake like they have just committed the ultimate crime of murder.
No.
They just go around sort of nonchalantly, as if nothing has happened, and that kind of bothers me. And there's also moments of forced humor, like in Scream 4, that bug me. But I do think the first half of it is very good, and certainly it's a cut above other sort of recent remakes that I could mention. But the second half really lets it down, I think. But it's a decent enough attempt, but not a patch on the original.
Yeah. No. How about you, Joseph?
I think I agree with Eric. The setup is better than the payoff. I mean, the killer's motive is extremely ridiculous. You guys remember how? But yeah, I mean, like Eric said, the setup is really good with the whole the murder, but it's like he said. After that, it's like they almost forgot they've committed a crime. They just kind of go about their daily lives until they start getting killed off one by one. I certainly didn't hate it like I do a lot of remakes. I mean, it's probably one of the better ones, but overall, I mean, I don't really want to go out of my way to watch it again. I mean, it's certainly not a patch on Mark Rossman's film at all.
But in Mark Rossman, he had some. Didn't he? Wasn't he produce it or something?
Yeah, he has the producer credit.
Yeah, he also really enjoyed it. He mentioned that it's leagues apart from his film. Tonally, and it's actually a different film. I mean, if you think about it, it's pretty much a remake with almost in title only. I mean, it has a few similarities, but they're very different films. But I know he said he liked it, and I don't hate it, but I won't go out of my way to watch it ever again, probably.
No, okay. How about you, Nathan? What are your thoughts on it?
I liked it. Like Eric and Joseph has said, it's nowhere near as good as the original, and like I told Robin earlier, it doesn't have a head in the toilet, which really bothers me.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy it. I actually thought it was a lot of fun, and I actually would go out of my way to see it again. Matter of fact, I kind of want to watch it right now.
Okay. Well,
I think I might have to go watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
After the show. Evening. After the show, of course.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Well, I mean, it's funny enough, actually, I saw it in cinema like Eric, and I quite enjoyed it. I remember feeling not dirty exactly, but a little bit. It was a bit shifty going to see it because it's almost like it was, I don't know, wrong to be watching it for some bizarre reason. I don't know why, but it kind of, the thing that it took me out of it was, especially as you say, I mean, I agree. The first half of the movie was pretty good. The second half, I think it was when all the stuff like, when the dead body turns up at the end and the bitchy sororityist says, "Oh, she's looked better" and stuff like that. It's quite funny, but ultimately, it's not how a normal person would react, and it's certainly not how the people reacted in the original. And it's almost like, not we don't care, but we've just kind of gone beyond caring about, we've jettisoned any reality from this. This is now all kind of over the topness. And the killer, the motive, I watched it, the day before yesterday, and I don't really recall what the motive was. I thought
it's like he wanted to get her out of that life or something like that.
It's very silly.
It's very silly, but not silly.
If you think about it, it really has nothing to do with the murder. It's like, I wanted to get you out of this life or something like that.
But not silly
away from these people
good,
or whatever.
Isn't he a sort of senator's son or something, and he wants to remove everyone who was involved in the scenario so that she's never implicated in the crime.
Which is a very strange way of going about it, by killing hundreds, well not hundreds, but like lots of people. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of good stuff in the movie. I mean, I like the whole row thing was pretty, not creepy. There's not really anything creepy about this film at all. It never goes into that creepiness which the original film does. But it's fun enough. I mean, it's kind of it's a
popcorn film. That's what it is. Popcorn.
Yes.
And I don't.
What did you guys think of the weapon?
I like the weapon.
Yeah. The tire iron with the blade.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually.
I liked the wine bottle as implement of murder as well.
Chugs.
Yes.
Chugs. Yes. I mean, that was the thing, wasn't it? Because there wasn't like, I mean, Chugs was quite funny, but out of the Sorority sisters, this is the thing that it goes back to, and it time and time and time again, when you get to these remakes, is the originals can do bitchy girls and you still like them, but the remakes do bitchy girls and you don't like them. I mean, why? I don't really understand what it is, but
I think it's because the original, the girls are sort of plain Jane looking, but in the remake they all look really airbrushed and superficial and unreal.
I think the girls in the 1983 version are hot.
Yeah.
For me, one of the reasons that I like the bad girls in the original is, even though they were bitchy, like when they were confronted with the killer, they had that vulnerability quality about them that made me still like them. Whereas, like you were saying earlier, Justin, when the bad girl in this is confronted with a body, she just makes a joke. So
it's kind of exactly. It just completely takes you out of it, and it doesn't.
It's like
it doesn't
the
work.
bitchiness in the bitchiness in the original is masking the vulnerability, whereas the bitchiness in the remake is just pure bitchiness. There's no vulnerability there.
Right.
And it's a shame because like the first half hour of the film is really, really effective.
Yeah, it's quite
and the way the prank goes wrong is really, really semi-realistic and quite shocking.
I mean, the other thing, which of course is probably bigger than the film itself, was that this probably was the film that killed the slasher movie revival, really, wasn't it? I mean, this did
it do bad, yeah.
It did pretty badly at the cinema, but certainly in the States. It didn't do very well at all, and the irony of it is that what people forget is with slash movies from the 70s, 80s, through. I mean, probably not the really sleazy kind of Don't Answer the Phone and Maniac and stuff like that. Probably not, but the breakdown in the audiences, it's pretty much half and half men and women. Because a lot of time, it's like My Bloody Valentine, the remake, and we'll be talking about, obviously, My Bloody Valentine and the remake in the next couple of podcasts. But the remake promoted itself as the ultimate date movie. And with slash movies in the early 80s, it was like the breakdown was male and, 50% men and 48% men and 52% female, or something like that. There was a big female audience for these films. And certainly in somewhere like Japan, where you have like films like The Ring and The Grudge, the originals, the people who were going to see those were teenage girls. They weren't, they were the people who made up the majority of the audience of those. And certainly with like a film like this, it played very much to a female audience. And so it should have done very well. It just didn't strike a chord for whatever reason, I don't know. It just kind of failed. And the same way Scream 4 failed to some degree as well to find an audience. And it's probably just the wrong time. It came out at the wrong time. But, I don't know. It's one of those films that, I'm not a snob when it comes to slash movies, as far as kind of, there's quite a lot of the remakes I enjoy. A lot of them I think are fucking awful, like Prom Night remake is fucking piece of shit, it's awful. But, films like Black Christmas remake and the remake of this and My Bloody Valentine are fun movies, on their own. If you're not judging them against the originals, they're entertaining movies. But I found actually this time when I watched it, it just didn't work. And also because you got the pretty boy killer giving away, they're all pretty boys in this, but one of the pretty boys is the killer. And it just doesn't work, it just really doesn't work. I mean, they should have managed to get like a deformed, monster from the attic or something. I know it's a hoary old cliche, but I'd rather have seen that than, some pretty boy, thing going on at the end. And of course,
if you look at the past outlet of slasher films, starting with Scream all the way up to where we are now with Scream 4, every killer that has been unmasked has been a really attractive male or a really attractive female. I mean, have we actually had?
Subjective.
But have we actually had a movie since Scream come out where the killer turns out to be? And I'm not counting the Texas Chainsaw or the Hills Have Eyes remakes, but have we actually had a pure slasher film that's not a remake, or even if it's a remake in name only, have we had one that has a killer who's a deformity? I don't think we have.
I don't think we have.
Wasn't Billy
that's like
in
an
Black
early
Christmas kind of deformed?
Well, I guess, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about like stuff like Humongous and Madman. I mean, you don't really see that kind of thing anymore.
Yeah.
And I think Justin was onto something. Someone should come out with a movie where the killer is this hulking deformity and kind of bring that pastiche back into the mainstream a little bit, I guess.
Either that or Sarah Palin, one or the other.
Yeah, there. Or Susie.
I'm surprised he hasn't hanged up on us.
That's not going to happen. But anyway, on that bombshell, have we got anything else sensible to say about the remake? Or
I'm going to
or
say
the
that I
original?
really liked the trailer for the remake. It made me really want to watch the movie.
I do too. If I can speak, I'm probably in the minority here, but I actually kind of like the Sorority Row remake better than I did Scream 4.
Okay. Well,
I probably would agree. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
agree
the first
too,
half
even
of
though I
Sorority
liked it.
Row is strong.
I mean, yeah. I mean, talking about just going on, not a tangent exactly, but did you guys hear that Scream 5 is still a possibility? That's what
Yeah,
they
that's what
mentioned.
I've heard. Yeah.
Which surprises me because obviously, apparently, it did very well abroad, but I don't quite know how. But it got yanked from screens very quickly. I mean, like a film like Insidious that was out before it is still out in American screens.
It's still in the top 20, actually.
Yeah.
It's
And-
making a really. I mean, the budget was $1 million for Insidious, and I think
Yeah.
it's made like almost 60 already.
Yeah, so it's kind of it made more than Scream, and they Scream 4, and they said it would, it was almost unthinkable that would happen. But Dimension Pictures are still saying that, or the Weinsteins or whatever, is still saying that Scream 5 is a possibility. Because apparently big sales across the world.
Well, if they want a good idea for a Scream 5, why don't they did scary movies, and they did sequels, and they did trilogies, and they did remakes. Why don't they do Scream 5 where they're basically making fun of beating a dead horse, even though something was terrible at the box office, they still do it. I think that's a pretty good idea.
No, absolutely. Well, I mean, we'll see what happens. But I mean, the thing was obviously Sorority Row. Without giving away the ending, it kind of.
I think we already did.
Well, we think it gave away the ending, but it paints very clearly for a sequel, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess it kind of does.
But it obviously didn't happen. So, which is fine. Because
I don't even think it made as much as Scream 4, and Scream 4 really didn't make much money at all.
I mean, it made less than 10 million. I'm not even sure.
Well, I imagine the Sorority Row remake was a much lower budget.
Yeah.
Could be. Yeah.
I mean, Scream 4 budget was so bloated for what it was. I mean, it was ridiculous.
I mean, what did they
40 million.
spend $40-something million on?
We've already talked about
Courtney Cox, David Arquette,
Yeah.
like that.
Neve Campbell and all those
Wes Craven
come back.
Yeah. And all that collagen. So it's...
Hey, I like Courtney Cox.
Me too.
I wasn't talking about
like
Courtney
her,
Cox.
but she's still fun to make fun of.
I wasn't talking about Courtney Cox. Anyway, so I think guys, I think we are heading like the Silver Express or whatever it is towards a 3-hour mark. So
Actually, we're at the mark now. We're Bollywood.
Yeah,
we are Bollywood.
Time for my song.
Yeah. So I think because we are going to be meeting again, you won't. Dear listener, you won't hear this until a fortnight, but we're going to be meeting again this Sunday coming. So we will sign off here now because obviously we won't have anything to say to each other. I mean, there's only so much bollocks you can talk. So I think, is there any other burning opinions on the film before we sign off?
Opinions on the burning?
Not the burning. Well, we'll come to that, I'm sure. But the House on Sorority Row and Sorority Row before we sign off.
I think I've exercised all my thoughts, so I think we're good to go.
Okay.
I love them. And
I think
that's
it's highly recommended from all four of us. Is all we need to say.
Absolutely. So what we'll do now is we will sort of sign out with the superlative score from the ending of The House on Sorority Row.